This is Lieutenant Colonel Leslie King, radio check, over.
Well, good evening, all. Having reached the hour of 6 o'clock, welcome you to our town hall. And I'd like to inform all of you that the meeting will be broadcast live and recorded for future viewing. Tonight's invocation will be given by our Vice Mayor Egbert, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Sia and Shiley Adhikari. So at this time, please rise.
Our eternal Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this opportunity to have government, to have freedom, to have a place where we can be heard. We're grateful for the peace of our country and pray for those that watch over our safety, including our first responders and our military that are serving here and abroad. We ask for comfort and healing to those that within the Nashville community that are facing yet another tragedy. We pray in this room that we can have civility, we can be respectful, and that we can be calm as we listen to those that have things to say. Help us as our elected officials to hear, to understand, and to be able to do what we've been asked to do, and that is to govern. We ask these things humbly in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Sia and Shiley, whenever you're ready. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good job. Your voice is projected very nicely. Thank you for being here. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Councilmember Bracco.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Gillespie.
Here.
Councilmember Morales. Councilmember Priolo. Here. Vice Mayor Egbert.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the call to the public. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the town council on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or any issue which the town council can lawfully act upon at a future meeting. Pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws, the council may not discuss the items, but individual members of the council may respond to criticism made by those who've addressed the council, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask the matter to be placed on a future agenda. I have a bunch of speaker cards for it. You'll notice when you get up to the podium, there's 3 lights. Everybody has 3 minutes. The green light will start the 3 minutes. When you hit the yellow light, you'll be at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then when the red light comes on, a trap door opens and you disappear. So please wrap up your comments at the red light, because we have a lot of people. And I'll be calling your names if you so choose when, it gets to you and the thing's already been said, you can defer. You don't have to come up, but you're always welcome to speak to your council members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before you start, the first time I came to a council meeting and I was in a room very full like this, and I came up to speak, I was frustrated that the council didn't respond. I just want to make sure that those are here. If it's not on the agenda, the council can only listen. We can't respond to your concerns. So we're not ignoring you. We just can't respond because it's not on the agenda. I just want to make sure that's clear, because we do want to hear from you, but we
Right.
just can't respond
And
yet.
there will be other opportunities upcoming, obviously, I'm guessing on the particular item, that you will have that opportunity, and we will have that dialogue, but you're always welcome here anytime. Mr. David Wolf, and when you get to the microphone, just for the record, if you could state your name, address, and then begin your comments. And I actually briefed David today, the trap door is falling open for him, so there you go. See, I taught you well. Yeah, just 1 second, David. It's not on, the mic. No,
Hold on, Lisa's coming over.
or Leah's
Just a second, the rescuer's coming.
not coming off your time.
No, yeah, you'll be.
There we go.
There we go. The light wasn't on. Can you hear me better now?
We can, and we're rebooting your light, as you'll notice right there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mayor, council members, my name is David Wolf. I live in the town of Sahuarita. I have for 2.5 years. I'm here to speak about the Vulcan Materials asphalt plant permit application, which will be addressed at other hearings, not today. Would you raise your hand if you're here for that issue? Thank you.
Welcome.
The Vulcan Materials property is currently zoned as, get this, very low density residential with a subcategory of rural homestead. It's only when you drill down do you see that the code allows in rural homestead for conditional use permits such as hog farms, concrete plants, and asphalt plants. Low density residential. Over several decades, the town of Sahuarita has created an untenable situation by promoting the development of residential communities to the point where the margins between the residential and the Vulcan property will cause a serious problem for traffic safety and health. Your decision to approve or deny the Vulcan Materials permit application should not be based solely on the town's zoning codes and the general plan. Doing so will push these problems down the line. Instead, I encourage the town council to think outside the box, to conciliate with Vulcan Materials, the planning and zoning staff, the citizens of this area, and possibly Robeson communities, to develop a mutual beneficial solution that will prevent future issues in the community. I respectfully ask you to do your homework. Learn from the experience of other communities that have gone through this very scenario. Engage with independent experts and take their lessons to heart. Issuing a conditional use permit is equivalent to a taking in terms of my existing property rights. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thanks for being here. Gail Baumgartner? I was trying to get your whole name out before the clapping interrupted.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for recognizing me. My name is Gail Baumgartner. I live in Rancho Sahuarita, and I'm here to share my perspective about the possibility of the Vulcan asphalt plant being allowed to set up operations just outside of Quail Creek. There isn't one positive element, of this proposal that I can find if this is approved. These were detailed in an email I sent to all of you. This proposal is very detrimental to our community. But the one that concerns me the most and hits closest to home is the health risk to anyone within a 10-mile radius and further. OSHA has reported that health effects from exposure to asphalt fumes include headache, skin rash, sensitization, fatigue, reduced appetite, throat and eye irritation, cough, and skin cancer. My home is on the north end of Rancho and is only about 6.5 miles away from the proposed production facility. The closest part of Rancho is less than 3 miles. We're all at risk of being impacted, but not only by the foul smell, but the health risks that exposure to these airborne particulates can create. I'm aware that Vulcan claims, since they are beyond the required 1/2 mile from any residential area, we'll all be fine. They stated that prevailing winds will drive any fumes away from our residences. Actually, since the prevailing winds come from the southeast, they'll blow right into Rancho. I have 2 graphs that I've shared with all of you that tell the full story. What they show is 1, the radius exposed to the 5-micron particulates, which are the most easily inhaled and which will do the most harm, can travel about 9 miles with 12-mile-an-hour winds. The calculated average from the past 12 months is over 15 miles an hour, with average gusts of over 27 miles an hour, which can carry the particles over 18 miles. Data pulled by Ed Kraft of Quail Creek shows that 70.8% of the prevailing winds are generated from the southeast. Putting those 3 sets of data together, I believe Rancho Sahuarita, the Sonora del Webb, and Rancho Resort will be even more impacted than Quail Creek in this aspect of it. We are looking for information when Vulcan submits their forms to Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, which must disclose the effectiveness of their bag house in removing 5-micron particles. We moved here from Illinois just under 5 years ago. I was diagnosed with severe asthma, COPD, and I have only 1/3 of my lungs functional. We purposely opted out of the Phoenix area due to their poor air quality. My health was our major reason for picking Sahuarita as our final move to the much better air quality here. Countless others have moved here for the same reason. One more sentence?
One more sentence.
Thank you. This will severely impact people ranging from small children to our high concentration of seniors with similar issues and could easily become our death sentence. The people should come first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Edwin Kraft. Good evening.
Excuse me. My name is Edwin Kraft, resident of Quail Creek in the town of Sahuarita. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I will be also addressing the issue of the Vulcan Materials application. As an engineer and scientist, I dwell in number-supported facts. I have given you a sheet, a data sheet. Looks like this. None of you have gotten it.
Yep.
Let me know. I can provide another one. This is pertaining to the proposed hot mix asphalt, or HMA, plant. In my 3 minutes, I'll point out just the highlights. Regarding truck traffic on our roads, over 16,000 tons per day of traffic would use our roads near this plant, from this plant. When there was a similar plant in Rio Rico, the volume of traffic was much less, but their roads were destroyed. destruction of our roads will be worse. Regarding pollution, data from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, when you factor in the size of this proposed plant, shows that it would produce over 280,000 pounds per year of pollutants such as volatile organic compounds, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, and EPA-classified hazardous air pollutants. Vulcan claims that prevailing winds from the southeast will carry any odors or pollutants away from Quail Creek. However, the windrows data from the USDA shows it differently. And there's an example of that on your sheet. You have a typical windrows on the data sheet I've given you. When I analyzed the data for a whole year, it showed that Quail Creek would receive over 28,000 pounds per year of these pollutants. Around 5 times that amount would blow in the direction of Rancho Saurita. We are waiting for Vulcan to submit their application for an HMA plant permit to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. This will give us more specific information on the proposed operation, which will allow us to fine-tune these predictions. Now, there is a solution to this odor and pollution problem. The best solution would be to deny the permit application. If that is not possible, as a condition of permission, the council should require that Vulcan install a regenerative thermal oxidizer, such as is available from their systems and likely others. This would burn the pollutants, with the exhaust being carbon dioxide and water vapor. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, appreciate it. Linda Beal? Oh, jeez, my watch keeps talking to me. Jeez almighty.
Mayor Murphy and council members, I am Linda Beal. I live in Quail Creek. Nobody I have spoken with would want you to allow Vulcan to run an asphalt plant less than a mile down the road from our community. We do not want to be subjected to toxic, carcinogenic fumes and particles. We don't want to put up with nasty odors or outrageous truck traffic. Our health and that of other residential communities in the vicinity will be compromised by the reduced air quality. Heavy truck traffic will cause damage to the roads, traffic concerns, noise, and safety issues. These are compelling reasons for you to help Vulcan find a non-residential area to locate their business. Some people believe that you have no concern for our property values or our well-being. But some people believe that you have been proud of developing Saurita as a healthy community to attract families. Please consider what ruining our residential area will do for the town reputation. Please consider the consequences of turning nice neighborhoods into high-vacancy, low-rent slums as we move out and can't sell. Please protect us. Please help Vulcan find an appropriate place for their business. Please consider the human and environmental impact of such an operation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Gail Gullner?
Hi, Mayor, Council, and fellow town citizens. My name is Gail Gullner, and I'm a resident of Saurita in the Quail Creek community. I'm speaking for myself and also on behalf of Randy and Lisa Langham, who were not able to be here today. So we have heard people in the Sahuarita Green Valley community say the Vulcan issue is a Quail Creek problem. We would like to go on record stating that it is a problem that would affect thousands of residents in our valley in different ways to some degree. We also hear that Vulcan may sue the town if their permit is not approved. Could other businesses that would be negatively impacted by their presence sue if the permit is approved and their ability to do business is impeded? We do not know what Vulcan or other businesses might do in the future. We do know that an asphalt plant would have a permanent and negative impact on our community. This includes public and private property damage, long-term human health effects, slow environmental changes, property devaluation. Less property tax equals less money for schools. Our safety with their increased traffic on public roads, the nuisances that are inherent in their type of business, including smell, noise, lights, ash, and loss of future business and job opportunities. No one denies that Vulcan has a right to conduct business in our state, county, or town. All that we ask of Vulcan is compassion in lieu of a couple extra dollars to their bottom line. There are literally millions of acres available to produce the important products that Vulcan supplies, places that would not be literally in the epicenter of numerous family housing developments that the town approved and that are centered around outdoor living experiences. In conclusion, if Vulcan prevails in this venture, no one will be the better for it except for Vulcan. Perhaps a line in the sand is the appropriate response by the council. That courageous stand would be in favor of the town's people and reputation as a progressive, safe family community in which to raise children and in which to retire for those final precious years. Let your legacy be that you put the health and safety of the people of the town first, not that you approved a permit that placed an asphalt plant in the middle of seniors and children and placed the citizens of Sahuarita at risk. What is legal can sometimes be very far removed from what is moral, ethical, and right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mike Gollner.
Mr. Mayor, council, and fellow citizens, and appreciate everybody showing up for this tonight. I got to compliment the advertising that goes on for this town, because the more you dig, the more you look, someone does some beautiful work. You know, they show the walkways, the lake, and the colors are great, the flowers and all that stuff. So I just whoever does that, puts it together, is beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Gollner. I should tell you that to start with. I'm a resident of Sahuarita. Sahuarita. The town webpage states, you're going to love it here. The vision, I get hung up on the vision for Sahuarita. As advertised, the town of Sahuarita was intended to create a distinctive sense of place to make Sahuarita stand out from other communities in the area. Lakes, parks, walking and hiking trails, all outdoor sports activity, dining and family activities, all outdoors. A hot vision quality requires a steadfast spirit with leaders who believe in moral responsibility as a building block to promote home, health, and happiness. A hot asphalt plant in the middle of the town would not be one huge devastating explosion like we have all witnessed and seen in Ohio. A hot asphalt plant in the middle of this town would be a slow, poisonous fallout that would slowly devastate and impact all residents of Sahuarita and our neighboring communities. Hot asphalt plant, not a good vision. Absolute effects would be agricultural issues, air quality, odor, and off gases of product. Infrastructure, noise pollution, railroad activity, traffic control congestion, business and business ventures, Madera Canyon recreational and tourism, real estate and home values, lower property tax also impacting the schools. pecan orchards and growers, Sahuarita lakes and parks, and the big one, health concerns for the children and the elderly. Vulcan hot asphalt plant. They could do this. They can poison, pollute, pay the fines, and still prosper. With due respect to all the town leaders, Mr. Mayor, please revisit your thoughts and concerns regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Easman, and then following him will be Carl Larson.
Good evening. My name is Ken Easman. I'm a resident of Sahuarita, as well as a Quail Creek resident. I'm speaking in opposition to the proposed Vulcan asphalt plant on Old Nogales Highway. So why? My concerns are my property values and my quality of life. And my phone just went off. Sorry about that. And I think your concerns should be, if that plant were to be allowed, that part of Sahuarita will become an area that nobody will want to develop and nobody will want to live there. And that includes a current developer out in Quail Creek, Robeson. I'm hoping that you agree that an impactful industrial plant is not in keeping with the future direction and goals of the town. Sahuarita is foremost a growing residential community, as previous speakers have talked about, with a bright future, but it's not an industrial center. This plant doesn't belong here. My main opposition to the plant are the fumes that it most likely will emit. I'm a Quail Creek resident. I'd be within a half a mile of this plant. I suspect that the applicant will say that's not going to happen. There won't be any emission of fumes. I don't believe it, nor do my neighbors. You know, the perception of a stinky asphalt plant within a short distance of these homes, it'll kill our property values, drive residents out, and the resale values will plummet. Robeson's probably not going to want to continue to develop, and this part of Sahuarita will get a taint in it where nobody will want to live there. Perception becomes reality. The bigger issue for the town will be once the plan is approved and the investments have been made and those emissions do happen, I don't believe that you have the ability to stop it. It will just continue, and as previous speakers said, you can fine them, but it won't resolve the problem. Clearly, the major benefit of Sahuarita as a great residential community outweighs the minor benefit of an asphalt plant. I recognize the applicant has certain property rights. For the benefit of our residents, find a way to deny this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Larson, and then John O'Rourke.
Mr. Mayor, Council, nice to meet you guys today. I've owned property in Quail Creek since 1999. We're in Unit 1. I'm sorry. I've owned property since 1999. And the air quality back then has not changed one iota. I'm heavily involved in the education system in this area. I substitute teach. I value the kids' lives in this area, and so much I invest my time in that. I also invest my time in exercise. I've done somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 miles of running in the last 15 years. It all started here. I've run 17 marathons and 40 half marathons in the last 10 years. And I really value the fact that I'm able to train here. The air quality and what it's done for me mentally and what it does for my kids, because I go in each day and I try to do my best to ensure that what I give to this town is something that I value. I'm hoping each and every one of you think about what you plan on doing or not plan on doing to make this town more valuable. And with that said, I cannot possibly top what some of these People have said already today. It's very choking, it's very humbling, and it's very nice to live in a town that's like this. And I appreciate the time that you guys gave me today.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. John O'Rourke, and then Robin Earl.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name's John O'Rourke. This is my 10th year here in the town. I'm a resident of Quail Creek, and I'm also on the Board of Directors for Quail Creek's Homeowners Association. You've heard a couple of people mention this evening homeowner values that will decline. I can assure you that that is not just oppositional rhetoric. How can I do that? Because I know for a fact that already potential home builders in Quail Creek are concerned to the point where they are backing out of the sales process. In other words, they're saying, if that plant goes in, I'm not going to build my home in this town. This isn't a Quail Creek issue, because we're going to hear that over and over again from people in Stonehouse, from people in Madeira Highlands. You're going to hear it in Rancho. People are going to say, I don't want to live in that kind of town. Can you blame them? Vulcan is talking about 200 to 300 trucks, heavy trucks a day, coming past our homes, our schools, our parks, our ball fields. Who wants to live like that? Mr. Mayor, I've heard you say more than once, what is it you say, that this is the happiest place on earth, with all due respect to Disney?
Yep.
You know, man, there goes that. That's not so happy when you got I wouldn't want 200 to 300 ice cream trucks coming through the town, let alone trucks filled with asphalt. And you know, Vulcan's clever. They're going to tout their record when it comes to social corporate responsibility. But look at the facts. It's public information. Look at their violations when it comes to environmental violations. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, oh, we're so heavily regulated. Well, of course they're heavily regulated. You know why? It's hazardous. Okay? Operations that are not hazardous don't get heavily regulated. And you know what? Here, go tell the people of East Palestine, Ohio, that the railroads were heavily regulated. What'd that do for them? Here, go home tonight and Google these 3 words. Asphalt plant fire. I did that just for the heck of it. I got 30,100,000 hits. Asphalt plant fire. We don't want this thing. Home buyers don't want this thing. Please do the right thing. You know what the right thing is. It's not an easy decision. I know it's not. You got legal loopholes and such. But hey, we got lawyers too. Let's fight it. Let's fight it. Let's do the right thing. Thank you.
Robin Earl, and then Elizabeth Chudy Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. I brought my cheat notes like a few of us did. In my prior career, I got hit in the head a few times. You know, that's playing 9 years in the NFL will do that to you. But my logo, the Chicago Bears. Got any Bear fans out there? All right. Anyway, my wife and I, she's standing right here. We've been in Quail Creek now for a year and a half, and we love it. It's been fantastic. And the reason I'm standing here talking to you all is because our beautiful retirement home, which we've invested a ton of money in, is the closest property to the proposed site of Vulcan. Right around 800 yards. You want to know how I could figure that out? I know what 100 yards looks like. Okay? I paced it out. Had to, dodge a few rattlesnakes and some cactus, but, got the job done. But, waking up to loud noises and having a smelly, stinky air while you're trying to enjoy your morning coffee, that's no bueno, as my wife would say. Not sure if you know this, but the word Vulcan originated from Roman mythology, meaning the god of fire. There's only one God in my life's vocabulary, and that's Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. The Quail Creek petition crew, which I've been a part of, and we spent the last 2 weeks collecting 2,521 signatures from the Quail Creek residents. That's a large percentage and should send a message to every town board member, including you, Mr. Mayor. As I watched and spoke to the petition signees, they all had the same thought in their mind and that look in their face. Is this really happening? Who in their right mind would build an asphalt plant smack dab in the middle of a senior retirement community? Everyone had concerns, fears, apprehensions, and frankly scared to death about their health issues. Geez, I'm going to finish before the 2-minute warning. This predator company must not be permitted to produce asphalt in Quail Creek's backyard. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Elizabeth Miller, and is the sheriff still here? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to have you come up. You're next after that.
Hi, I'm Tootie Miller, and I'm a resident of Sahuarita. Thank you, in Quail Creek. And it's my honor to be able to address you all tonight. I'm not going to say how I feel about it because I think everybody feels the same way. We've lived here 6 years, and we have a pool. I don't want to have to vacuum ash out of it. What I do have is what the Environmental Protection Agency says that asphalt plants do. They release millions of pounds of chemicals into the air during production each year, including many cancer-causing toxic air pollutions such as arsenic, benzene, formaldehyde, and cadmium. Other toxic chemicals released into the air include volatile organic compounds, polycystic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, and very fine condensed particles. The EPA also says that asphalt processing and asphalt roofing manufacturing facilities are major sources of hazardous air pollutants such as hexane, phenol, polysilicate, organic matter, and toluene. Exposure to these air toxins may cause cancer, central nervous system problems, liver damage, respiratory problems, and skin irritation. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has determined that PAH from asphalt production may be carcinogenic to humans. A study in the Blue Ridge Mountains has documented a 50% reduction in property value because of a nearby asphalt plant. I would just ask that you consider the residents of Green Valley, Sahuarita, and all the subdivisions within before you approve a permit for Vulcan to build an asphalt plant near us. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff.
Hello, good evening. My name is David Hathaway. I'm a resident of Nogales. I'm the elected sheriff of Santa Cruz County, which is just south of here. I'm a relatively new sheriff. I've only been the sheriff for 2 years, a little over 2 years. I'm replacing the longest serving sheriff in Arizona. But I like to learn how other communities do things. I like to sit in on your government body here, the county boards of supervisors, the different city councils, town councils. Also wanted to say hi to my former neighbor and friend, Shane Dilley. He was the best city manager we ever had in Nogales. And my mother-in-law, Eleanor Duke, says hi also extends. I know she was a neighbor and good friend of yours. Just do a little bit about my background, just so you know who I am. Part of a 5-generation ranching family. My family's been in the Nogales area since the 1800s, since before Arizona was a state. I own ranching property in Cochise County and Santa Cruz County. And our two communities are tightly connected. A lot of Nogales, Santa Cruz County people come up and do their shopping and recreational things up here in Sahuarita. Most of the federal agents that work in Nogales live up here in Sahuarita. Nogales has the biggest border patrol station in the world, Sonoita, that's also in my county, has the 3rd biggest border patrol station in the country, and also big DEA office and Homeland Security. Before I ran for sheriff, I was the head of the DEA in that in that city down there, and then I ran for sheriff after that. But I have really not much more than that. I just kind of want to listen in and see how you guys do things. I'm a homeschooling father of 9 children. Me and my wife she's from Nogales as well. Yeah, eight grandchildren. And also want to say hi to all the residents up here. I'm glad to see all the interest. The community has interest in what your local government is doing. So just kind of sitting in and observing and seeing how you guys do things as a relatively new sheriff. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks for all you do to serve and protect as well. I appreciate that. Robert Robinson, and then Shirley Holland.
Well, this will be a change of pace because I'm not talking about the asphalt plant. I'd like to say something about the zoning for the land at Duval Mine Road and La Cañada.
Oh, this is for the park one, so you can speak on that item when it comes up. So I would wait.
Oh, okay.
That was in my wrong pile.
I thought my number 12 was on there.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
And this is 12.
And that's 12 too. Okay, we're getting close. And that's 11. David Holland. Is there a David Holland? No? Okay. Martha Parsons?
Good evening, Mayor. Many of
evening.
my comments have been said already to Mayor and Council. I'm a former council person in my city, previous city, and a planning commissioner, and I passed the general plan. I cannot even believe the zoning for this property. That's just an aside. I just got back from California and visited my brand new 6th great-grandchild, who's 2 weeks old. I want to be able to invite my grandchildren, and I'm going to cry, my great-grandchildren to visit me. You do this, and they won't be coming here, and we'll be leaving here. I want to be able to enjoy them and them to enjoy me. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a Lynn Hensinkveld, but it has item number 11. What did you want to speak to tonight?
I want to speak to the Vulcan
Okay.
plant.
Okay, go
Thank
ahead.
you. My name is Lynn Husingfeld. I live at 1289 North Bird's Nest Road in Quail Creek. And I want to compliment you on your plan. Your Aspire 2035 has been mentioned already, but I just, this is in my letter to you. Sahuarita's appeal to residents, businesses, and tourists will be enhanced through its recognition and protection of the arts and its natural and cultural resources, the Santa Cruz River, archaeological and historic preservation areas, clean air, water resources, dark skies, natural habitat, and scenic views. Now, you just have to come off the freeway at Duval Mine Road and look in the direction of this plant and imagine a smokestack there emitting black smoke into our environment. And you know it's not the right place. You look behind you, there's all these strip mines. What a perfect place for them to locate. But anyway, your town code says that all of the following findings must be met. 1A, the conditional use complies with the objectives of the general plan or the area plan in which the property is situated. B, the conditional use conforms to the zoning regulations applicable for that use and the zone in which it is located. I'm going to skip down to D. The conditional use provides for adequate and efficient vehicular and pedestrian access, circulation, and parking. Now, as I left Quail Creek and headed up to, I'm sorry, I want to say hello to you people. A little nervous. Can you imagine 300 trucks crossing that unimproved railroad site? You've been having trouble getting a stoplight at Quail Crossing. E, the conditional use can adequately and efficiently be served by public and utility facilities and services. Now, I've read the conditional use application, and they didn't mention emergency fire services, but can you imagine hitting bitumen, which I guess is like a smelly version of gasoline, solid, heating it up so it's hot enough to put rocks in it and there not be the potential for a fire or for an explosion, which has happened at other places. And, but they haven't addressed the possible need for fire service. The conditional use will meet standards in terms of control of noise, smoke, glare, or heat, odors, vibrations, fly ash, dust, fumes, vapors, gases, and other forms of air pollution, liquids, and solid waste. Now, you've heard that there might be some problems in that area as well. The hours of operation will not be detrimental to adjoining residents. In reading their application, it says that they will operate,
I'll give you one sentence. I gave Gail one sentence.
Okay. They leave the right to operate 24 hours a day. And please read my letters to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the cards I had. I'll close the call to the public, but I really just wanted to pass on my appreciation. You were all very respectful and respected the light. Didn't have to pull my lever. No trap door tonight. But obviously, you know, we'll have more conversations as this process moves forward. But I really appreciate your respectfulness very much. Thank you. Come to council member brief summary of current events. Council member Morales. Simon? Diane? I pass. Bill?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Went to the grand opening of the new dental office across the street. Beautiful facility, so hopefully they do well.
Yep. Thank you, Bill. Dr. Gillespie? Kara?
Fiesta Saurita is coming up in April 15th. So it's usually in March, but it's in April this year. I hope that you will come out and support our town's birthday celebration.
Thank you. And I was able to throw out the first pitch on opening day of Copper Hills Little League on Saturday. We had 550 kids signed up, 100 plus more than last year. The thing that warmed my heart was they have a philosophy of right to play. So no kid is denied the opportunity. They find the money for a bat, a ball, a glove, or whatever it might be. And there was a young softball catcher, and I didn't skip the ball, and I didn't knock her out. So that was a good day in my field. Yep, absolutely. And a reminder, the next regular scheduled meeting is April 10th. And Madam Clerk, item number 7.
Town Manager's Report highlighting employee and department accomplishments, capital improvement projects, development projects, and town events.
Thank you. Mr. Dilly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Once again, a pleasure for me to have an opportunity to present with you the Town Manager's Report for the month of March. I obviously have the privilege of being voice to this report to you each month, but it comes at the hand of some pretty talented people. Our leadership team helps populate the data and the information, and Mark Felix in our office that helps me put it all together. So I really appreciate and recognize their help each month. There we go. One of the newest changes in our report is that we have an opportunity to now highlight new employees, and as well as those celebrating their 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th anniversary with the town in any particular month. This report's a little shorter than usual because we didn't have any new hires in this particular period of time. We do have a handful that we'll grab in the next report, though. I'm excited to share that information with you. And we have one employee, Suzette Stotts, that is a senior accountant specialist in our finance department. She is celebrating her 15th year with our organization. No small feat. And I want to thank her personally for that investment in our community and in our organization, and thank her for that work. The next section, we like to recognize employees and their accomplishments as they've earned various certifications or attended leadership programs, or and otherwise earned a mention for their outstanding service to the community. Louis Oraiza is a court security officer. Louis completed Supreme Court required training recently through the Supreme Court and earned his certification to provide that critical service to our court operations. So we'd like to thank Louis for his dedication and commitment. We also want to acknowledge Heidi Lasham, our Deputy Public Works Director and Utilities Division Manager. Heidi recently represented the town at the 9th Annual Sahuarita Water Festival. On March 3rd, the event had 22 teachers from 7 different schools, bringing more than 550 students to the festival, and so it was really well attended. I also want to take an opportunity at this time to thank her for those efforts, and announce to you that also noteworthy, on March 30th is going to be Heidi's last day with us. She's accepted another position in pursuit of her passion in development and construction management. So I wanted to publicly thank her for her years of service with our organization and wish her all the absolute best in her the next chapter of her career. So thank you, Heidi. Moving on, we'll get into some department highlights, Mayor and Council. Of course, the report contains a lot of information I can't share with you in this brief format. So I'd like to refer everybody to the reports on the town's website and the town manager's office, or the page. It's also part of the packet material here for this meeting tonight, so feel free to peruse and read through it. In the Parks and Rec department, staff has been working hard planning for the Fiesta Sahuarita scheduled event. That's one of our signature events. It's scheduled for April 15th. Our very next event in Parks and Rec will be the Bunny Bonanza. That's at Quail Creek Veterans Municipal Park on April 8th. That's between 9 o'clock and 11:30 a.m. that morning. And then with the promotion of Devin Stalder to now being our director in Parks and Rec, we had a recruitment effort to fill his previous position as recreation manager. We're pleased to announce that Austin Campbell was promoted from within to assume those new duties, and we're excited to see him grow in his leadership capacity in serving this community going forward. So thank you, Austin, for putting your name in the hat. Our police department made an announcement where they brought forward the annual award winners and they did that earlier this month. Aaron Medina, who is a sergeant in the police department, received the Employee of the Year award for his constant high-quality performance in all of his service capacities as a sergeant. And then also Officer Amanda Siebold, she received the Chief Citation Award for her outstanding work on the department's accreditation journey this past year. Heavy lifts by both to maintain those standards, and they were aptly recognized this past month for that work. In our economic development department, in companionship with our planning director, Anna, they both Victor Gonzalez and Anna participated in a number of different workforce summits and breakfast events where they represented the town. They were guest speakers, they were panelist speakers, talking on a various number of topics. They've done great work, and it's all captured in this report. I also want to acknowledge their efforts in economic development to work with the suburban real estate group to develop the 4-part video series Behind the Scenes Fiesta Sahuarita. A lot of good information there. And then finally, I didn't want to forget to acknowledge the recent national attention of Pub 22's Sahuarita dog. Jay Silverman of Have Fun WV, who's known to explore unique places in search of the ultimate foodie experience. This exploration recently landed Jay actually here in the town of Sahuarita, where he covered his foodie experience while eating a Sahuarita dog from Pub 22. He gave 4 thumbs up as he finished off his localized Sonoran hot dog, calling it the best unique dog in Arizona. So I thought that was great coverage of our wonderful community. I told my father-in-law about it, and I owe him a hot dog because he won't leave until he gets one. So, by way of capital improvements, just real quick, we've got a planned interior painting effort here at Town Hall and around our complex, a little touch-up here and there. It was mentioned tonight about the Quail Creek intersection. We've stated a complaint with the ACC. That's already been filed. What has yet to be filed is an application for a hearing. I know our town attorney and staff are working on that. We hope to have that filed here very, very soon. There's a lot of technical boxes that need to be checked off in that application. So it's not something that we take very lightly, and we have to make sure we do it right. So that's forthcoming. The Abrego Culvert project, we contracted with CMG Drainage Engineering to provide 30% design work. The reason why we needed to do that is to get a good cost estimate for what that project's going to run us. We're very near to completion on that, and the consultant is preparing conceptual cost estimates for us. We should see that here relatively soon, so stay tuned. And then in the planning and building department, of course, tonight you're going to be hearing the Park Corporation's application for a zone change on their property just north of the intersection of Duval Mine and La Cañada. And then, as we've heard from many of our public members or community members, we've got the Vulcan Material conditional use application that's being processed by staff. We do have a meeting scheduled later this week out at Quail Creek. We hope to, of course, the public hearings are in place so that all of the information that the community is generating, all the information staff's generating, all the information that the applicant is generating can come forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then after that, the town council. So our intent out there at Quail Creek is not to hash any of that out. It's really to help the community understand better what the CUP process is about, and a little context on both the Quail Creek neighborhood and the Vulcan site as well. So that we're looking forward to that conversation, and we recognize that there's a due process that plays out with the Planning and Zoning Commission and with council, and we need to see that through. So just stay tuned on that one. We're looking forward to the conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mayor and Council.
Thanks. Any questions? No. And I failed to mention under our report when I was out at the fields down in Animex for Copper Hills, honestly, the fields have never looked better. So please pass on my appreciation, our appreciation for the hard work that goes in to keeping those fields up as well used as they are. It's the best I've ever seen them. So
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that, and I know staff's listening to this. I do want, before we go on to item 8, I do want to just bring your attention to some changes to your calendar as a council and meetings that are ahead of us. We have a special council meeting scheduled for April 3rd, and that will be a joint meeting with the commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it will be basically the same information that we're sharing with the community in Quail Creek. We're going to be bringing that to you and the commission. The only addition to that is going to be the introduction of some open meeting law training by our town attorney in advance of some of these public hearings that you're going to get into. Then on April 24th, we have canceled that meeting because of your retreat scheduled later that week. And in lieu of that meeting, we've scheduled an April 10th meeting.
Right.
Okay, so that's on your radar. And then the retreat itself used to be a Thursday, Friday. We've changed that to the 28th and 29th of April, which is a Friday, Saturday schedule. So I just wanted to make sure that that was all on your radar.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted, if there is an empty seat next to you that you know nobody's sitting there, would you mind raising your hand so if those that are standing still want to have a seat? Looks like we have a few empty seats if people want to. You're welcome to stand, but I want to
Yep.
let you know there are a few seats available in the back that are in the foyer.
And Tude just made way for some additional seats.
Yes.
Yes, and you can hear in the lobby as well. Next is item number 8, Madam Clerk.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the 2023 legislative session updates.
Thank you. And Karen Cruz of the Cruz Group will be making this presentation. Are you there, Karen?
I am. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
It's my great pleasure to be presenting this evening. I am a very poor substitute for Nathan, but I will absolutely do my best. I wanted to first note before we jump in, and I'll be very brief, but before we jump in, I did want to springboard off of something that Mr. Dilly was saying about Fiesta Sahuarita, and just note for you that Nathan has extended invitations to all of the elected members that represent Sahuarita. So I believe that's been well received, and I believe a couple have responded positively. So just to note that for you.
Thank you.
And then to jump in for the session, it's been a little wild and woolly. We have 1,630 bills that have been introduced to date. 30 of those have passed. Only 2 have been signed by the governor. And she has already vetoed 16 of those bills, though the prediction is that she will veto a great many others. And we are at today, as of today, we are at day 78 of a traditional 100-day session. That does not mean that we're actually only going to go for 100 days. It just means that the traditional session is 100 days. And then after that, they stop the clock, literally stop the clock, and then we keep going until we get the business of the state done. So in that vein, March 31st is this Friday, is the final deadline for all bills to be considered by the opposite chamber in committee. So all of the committee work needs to be done by the end of this week, and then they shift to all floor action except for the Appropriations Committee, which can meet at any time. So our head is always on a swivel for not only the bills that we know of, but for what we call strike everythings, which I'll talk about in a moment because we're having to deal with one. June 30th is the end of our state's fiscal year, so that is when the state budget needs to be approved and signed by the governor. So I'll talk about that in a moment also, but negotiations have begun, small meetings have begun, priorities have been received of caucus members by leadership, so they are starting in earnest to discuss the budget. Next slide, please. So just to go through a few of these bills, 2061, House Bill 2061, that would have prohibited cities' ability to levy a food tax, passed along party line votes. It is on its way to the governor. The town of Sahuarita did submit a legislative position statement on that, and we have been talking with members and vocally opposing this bill. There is an effort, a collective effort, to combine opposition letters and submit them up to the governor for her review and consideration when she gets the bill before her. And so we're hopeful that she will oppose that bill. Even though the town of Sahuarita does not levy a food tax, we are banding together in the spirit of usurping local control. And so I will keep you posted on that one. We expect a veto, but we will see. House Bill 2067 is the prohibition against the ability to levy a rental tax. That one was vetoed by the governor. That was one of the 16. 2483, the backyard fowl bill, that actually kind of died a natural death, and so we don't need to worry about that one. And I'll discuss that with Nathan, that we could probably take that one off going forward. 2535, the private property wells regulation prohibition. That continues to be not necessarily a high priority for the town, but we're keeping an eye on it. It would prohibit private wells in an annexation effort by a municipality in an unincorporated area. If there's a private well drilled there, there's some dispute about whether the city could annex that well and the structures that the well provides water to. So that's being discussed. Amendments have been offered to try to narrow it to just Maricopa County, but the sponsor of the bill has so far not been very receptive to that. So we continue to watch that one and discuss that with members. And then House Bill 2536, which is a version of 1117, the big zoning bill of Senator Kaiser's, that is percolating around, although that has stalled. And if you'll flip to the next slide, I will explain kind of what's going on the Senate side. So I wanted to also bring your attention to Senate Bill 1162 that would prohibit cities from licensing home-based businesses. And I had a really terrific conversation with staff. I just want to put a shout out to the Economic Development Director, Mr. Gonzalez. He's been very, very helpful and very, very supportive. And I just very much appreciate that discussion. And it was very helpful in creating a very tailored message of how this would impact the town of Sahuarita apart from any other city, which is a very good thing to be able to do. It is on the third read calendar tomorrow in the House, which is the final stop because it has passed the Senate and it's now in the House. So it is the final stop. If it passes tomorrow, which we hope it will not, but it probably will, as these other local control bills have been going through, we will work, then pivot to the governor's office and urge her veto of this bill as well. And again, I'm working with Nathan and Shane to monitor those and keep on top of those sorts of bills. The Senate Bill 1117 that I mentioned, it did fail in a pretty spectacular way in the Senate. It only got 9 votes of the 31 needed, or 16, I'm sorry, of the 16 needed to pass the Senate. So that particular bill failed, but I'll skip a little bit and then I'll go back. Senate Bill 1161 and 1163 are also additional efforts that have popped up today that try to address the housing supply issue through zoning, and everyone is combing through it and providing analysis. So as of this particular moment, I can speak very high level to the details of the bill because they just dropped today. One of them, 1161, Senator Ortiz is a Democrat, and so is going at it from a transit-oriented development perspective and trying to increase housing supply in a different way than 1163. So again, we're the league and others are assessing that, and we will have more information for you later. And then jumping back up to Senate Bill 1268, which is, I know, a high priority for us, the annexation notice approval. It did pass the Senate on party line vote, 16-14, and it passed House government. So we're just now waiting for it to appear on the COW calendar, the Committee of the Whole, which is where the entire body in the House debates, considers, and then they'll flip it to third read, and then they will take a final vote on it. So again, we've been working with members and expressing our opposition and our unique, the impact that would have on us uniquely. So we are working and communicating with that to members, and we do also have a position statement on that one as well. And then if you flip to that last page, it's really just recapping what I had mentioned about the budget. They are starting discussions in earnest. I've heard rumors about a potential another Republican budget being introduced, but there's not been pure speculation at this point. We're just kind of monitoring and putting our ear to the ground. And in the meantime, individual members are being asked about their priorities, what they would need in order to vote for a budget. And so those conversations are being had by leadership. As I understand it, leadership in both the House and the Senate are meeting with the governor's office to have preliminary conversations about what they need to see in the budget before anything can be approved. And so, it's beginning. It's making of sausage, but it is beginning. And as I mentioned, June 30th is the absolute deadline for a budget to be passed and signed by the governor, or government shuts down until they figure it out and continue to process payments and things like that, collect revenue and do the business of the state. And I know I was very, very quick about that. I apologize, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Karen. Just one quick question. If it does shut down, does that mean the revenue stops flowing to the town? Because the Secretary of State, no, who is it, does the budgeting?
Yeah, so what will happen is they have about, and not to alarm anybody, they have about 6 months worth of carryover that they can utilize if need. But yes, it would absolutely impact shared revenue, of course, because, government would kind of shut down. So essential services would continue. Let me say that. Essential services would continue, but it would certainly be a lot of politics around the idea of shutting government down. And that won't likely happen. Again, I don't mean to alarm anybody. I just am saying that that's the absolute deadline.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Karen? Am I right? No. Thanks for staying on top of all these issues. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Have a good night. Item number 9 is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Madam Clerk, item number 10. Yep.
Discussion and possible adoption of Resolution 2023-0734, authorizing the town to enter into a memorandum of understanding, Sahuarita contract number 230061, with the Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, Arizona National Guard, to establish policies and procedures for the consultation and/or assistance with cybersecurity operations and services at no cost for a period of 10 years.
Thank you. Ron Bishop, our IT manager, will introduce the item, and Lieutenant Colonel Leslie King of the Arizona National Guard, and who will be presenting remotely. Ron, if you want to kick this off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Leslie King from the Arizona National Guard. Lieutenant Colonel King, can you hear us?
This is Lieutenant Colonel King. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So first off, I'd like to thank Council for your support of cybersecurity measures. For the past 2 years, you've proclaimed October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. You've also participated in our cybersecurity awareness trainings, and for that, we really appreciate it and are grateful. Let's see, cybersecurity, that's what we're going to discuss with you in brief tonight. So, the definition's on the video screen there, and it's a simple definition, but it's not so simple in practice. So, in practice, we need a cybersecurity plan, and we need that plan to be formalized. Installing antivirus and having current backups and calling it a day is no longer acceptable. So I can't go into detail into the town's planning, as that gives cyber criminals too much information, but these are in general on the screen parts of a cybersecurity plan. So to begin with, we control access. That's done through multi-factor authentication. We've all done that for a long time with our debit cards and our PINs. We use VPNs, which are virtual private networks. They establish secure connections between your home station and our computer systems. We also don't allow open Wi-Fi because that leads to account compromises. Secondly, we protect assets. Inventory, we can't protect what we don't know what we have. Backup mission critical information and encrypt personally identifiable information, also known as PII. We also run endpoint protection software. Antivirus is no longer an accepted level of protection in a enterprise environment. Third, we mitigate vulnerabilities. New cybersecurity problems are discovered daily. Just last week, Outlook 2013 and 2016 were found to have vulnerabilities. Outlook 2013 is 10 years old, and they just found this vulnerability last week. That's been there for 10 years. So software must be patched. And finally, you and I. We're the first line of defense. We need training. So we need phishing campaigns. A good plan also runs public service announcements. That keeps cybersecurity at the forefront of our minds when using computers. The good news is the town does a lot of this. We have a technology steering committee that assists with planning. We've instituted multi-factor authentication. We have a robust training program. And Southwest Risk, our risk management partner, last year at this time performed a mini hack on us and scored us at a 770, which rates us at an advanced cybersecurity measures level. The bad news. Well, yep, there's two sides to every coin. Best laid plans of mice and men, and bad things do happen to good organizations. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide other than to make you aware of recent events in our community. Sahuarita is a small community, and we don't have the resources, obviously, that these larger organizations have. So what do? We have partnerships. We establish partnerships. We don't have a chief information security officer. We don't have a security operations center, but our partners do. So I'm not going, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that slide. So our partners do. I'm not going to go through the offerings of our partners at this time, as we have a full agenda tonight, and the amount is too large for one slide. Simply know that each partner brings something unique to the cybersecurity table. I do want to highlight the Arizona Department of Homeland Security, because they are our largest cybersecurity partner. I represent rural communities in our great state, from Douglas to Fredonia, on the Arizona Cyber Readiness Task Force. The Arizona Cyber Readiness Grant program is also something the town participates, and that's run by AZDHS. It's part of the state and local cybersecurity grant program funded through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act passed by Congress. It's a great program. Arizona is one of a that we would normally acquire and pay for individually. We're also able to pool resources and technology expertise. That's of tremendous value to organizations of our size. So with that, I'd like to introduce our newest potential partner, the Arizona National Guard, and I will hand the presentation over to Lieutenant Colonel Leslie King. Colonel?
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the Town Council of the City of Sahuarita, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Leslie King. I am the officer in charge of the National Guard's Cyber Joint Task Force. Is there another slide? Thank you. I manage the full-time team that is focused on becoming the trusted cyber resource for improving the defensive cyber posture of the state's network, to which the town of Sahuarita is connected. We accomplish this through several initiatives, but two that I would like to highlight are reducing vulnerabilities by providing vulnerability assessments at no cost, highly technical counseling capabilities, and there is reimbursement costs for incident response, but my focus this evening is going to be on vulnerability assessment initiative. The Arizona Cyber Joint Task Force is divided into two teams. Our incident response team is made up of our traditional M-Day soldiers and airmen, several of which are Security Operations Center or SOC managers in their civilian jobs. The second team is our vulnerability assessment team, which works Monday through Friday with state, county, city, towns, and municipalities to help their information technology teams or IT teams improve their defensive cyber posture. Slide, please. The key to both of these initiatives is the Memorandum of Understanding. The MOU provides my team with their legal left and right limits. Once the MOU has been signed by your legal counsel, it is then countersigned by the Adjutant General of the Arizona National Guard and head of the Arizona Department of Emergency Management, Major General Kerry Muhlenbeck. My team will work with Mr. Bishop's team to develop a statement of work, which provides my team with its technical left and right limits. The entire vulnerability assessment kicks off with an in-brief and usually lasts about 2 weeks. 1 week for scans and 1 week for sandbox penetration testing and report writing. We finish with an out-brief that executive stakeholders are welcome to attend and a technical report along with all of our artifacts, findings, and recommendations. Once Mr. Bishop confirms receipt of all the technical data, we will delete all of our files except for the MOU. This prevents us from sharing any specific information about our findings with anyone. Since we're both public entities, this could become an issue down the road. We have been asked before for our findings, and we're able to tell them that they would have to go back to the organization in question for the specific findings. As you see in the lower right side of your screen, we do partner with several agencies, and Mr. Bishop's gone over many of them. Specifically, we partner with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security. However, I just want to be clear, I do not work for any of these agencies, nor do I report to them. We only share generalized, anonymous information related to vulnerabilities and findings. The Arizona Cyber Joint Task Force looks forward to working with the town of Sahuarita and encourages you to sign the MOU. Any of your questions, Mr. Mayor, this concludes my briefing. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the partnership. It takes many hands, especially I'll occasionally be getting council members emailing me going, "Are you okay?" because they've hacked my email saying I need gift cards. Now, I could use gift cards, but they don't have to come from my council members. So obviously we have this vulnerability going on. Any questions from staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Move to approve resolution number 2023-0734.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel King. Appreciate your partnership, and we'll be working with Ron to get those documents signed and off to him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, item number 11.
Presentation and discussion with Global Water Resources Incorporated regarding water resource management.
Thank you. We have Chris Krieger, the COO from Global Water Resources, to present this item. Good evening, Mr. Krieger. And if you wanted to begin, I know you have some of your team with you. If you could introduce them and proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor said, I'm Chris Krieger, Global Water's Chief Operating Officer. And as you've heard us say before, we're proud to have over 100 Arizonans that work for our company, and I have a few of them here today. You're going to hear from a couple of them, but first, Shayna Shea. She actually lives down here in Tucson and works for our company and has fantastic experience in water resources, not only in Arizona, but in Australia, which if any of you have done any research, Australia is an extremely water resource challenged environment, so we get to benefit from all of that awesome knowledge in our company. We have John Corwin, who you have heard from before. He is our Vice President and General Manager. He's going to give you an update on some of the emerging contaminants, specifically PFOA and PFOS that you've been hearing in the news. So he has a fantastic update there. And then leading us off is going to be Jake Lenderking. Jake is our Senior Vice President for Legislative Affairs and Water Resources and is an unbelievable resource in this space. He has worked for the city of Phoenix, which obviously has a tremendous water portfolio and is on a cutting edge of a lot of issues. He actually has worked for ADWR, so he has sat in the regulator's chair and thought about water resource issues in this state. And then he's obviously worked for us here at Global for over 5 years in this space too. So I think you're going to love the information that you hear, and obviously happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here talking about what I love, water. Matter of fact.
We're going to drink some too, right?
I'm going to need it. So I have about 15 slides here. I'm going to talk a little bit about our team, a little bit about our company, just a little background of what's been going on in recent times, the recent hydrology, talk about WIFA, the Water Infrastructure and Finance Authority, and some recent regulatory changes. And lastly, I'll touch on our approach, including how we're planning to firm up water rights for our designation of assured water supply, or DAWS, for in and around the farmers service area. So Global Water's got a rich history and a very different history than a lot of different utilities out there, because we were founded on the fact that water is scarce. It is an underlying principle about how our founders thought about water and grew up, how the utility just started in implementing and working with developers. That led to our philosophy that we call total water management. Of course, a big part of what we do is deploying recycled water, getting out ahead of development, working with developers, having agreements to allow for purple pipelines, bringing recycled water or wastewater treatment plant effluent into neighborhoods to be reused on turf and non-irrigation crops. We also have strong conservation programs, as well as smart meters that allow for our customers to not just get data 15 or 20 days after the end of the billing cycle, but instead, rather during the billing cycle, accessible online on our WaterSmart platform, or they can opt in for text messages, phone calls, or email leak alerts or threshold alerts, letting them know how much water they've used. So you could combine that with rate designs that are very innovative and have a threshold amount of water, say 6,000 gallons in our largest service area, that really provide our customers a target to hit, and then the data and the information that they can get daily to help them hit that target. Take that all together, and you look at that graph on the bottom right, and it's hard to see, but our blue line here is the one off to the left, and it says 116. That's a use rate called gallons per capita per day. And this is a data set found at the Department of Water Resources' 4th management plan. So we've been able to achieve in our community with our customers as our partners the second lowest GPCD rate of all designated providers in the greater Phoenix and Pinal active management areas. So rather large expanse of the populous part of the state. We've done really good. And you can see the average is almost twice as much, and the highest is almost 3 times as much. GPCD is not the greatest indicator of all things, but I think that leads us to see that our customers and our smart meters and our conservation programs are working. Our water resource team. Well, 2 of us have been introduced already. So let me introduce Pam Muse. She's top of the list there. She has a very long tenure in water. In fact, she started in 1987 at the Arizona State Department of Water Resources. She wrote many of the rules and laws that we work with today. She also went on to lead the water rights section at the State Land Department, so very happy to have her. And I'll throw some more kudos out to Shayna. Not only does she know how to do things in another country, but brings a really different mindset and a strong conservation focus with her. So proud to have her here on our team. And I won't cover myself at all. Jump right into hydrology. It's been a really wet year, and I don't think any talk about water would I mean, this year's been phenomenal, so I have to include it. Even though this isn't in and around our area here, it's a big part of the state. From the central and eastern part of the state flow the Salt and Verde rivers. And these are graphs showing snow water equivalent, or how much water is in the snow. And it basically shows there's a lot. That blue line shooting straight up, there's a lot there. The Salt and Verde watershed reservoirs are 100% full, and there's still more than 100% of normal snowpack in the mountains. So these news articles that say they're putting water in the dry riverbed, they're going to continue for a little while. Similar things happening on the greater Colorado River. It's an important source of water for 40 million people in 7 states and 2 countries. So I think it's important to bring up this little black line that shoots straight up there. That's this year, but it's actually, at this point, this is about a week old. I had to try to get it submitted in time for the packet, but it actually shoots out a little bit above the purple line there in that little dip. So we're having record amounts of snowfall. This is really going to help out the Colorado River, improve conditions in Lake Powell, even Lake Mead a little bit. But it's only going to put a dent in the greater drought. It is not going to fill Lake Mead and Powell this year and everything go back to normal. All the things we hear in the paper about the Colorado River and the federal government and the basin states working together is going to continue. Pray for this to happen next year too. Jumping from water hydrology to water organization. Now, WIFA is not a regulator. They like to say that, and I think it's important they say that. They do not tell people what they can and can't do. Rather, they let people apply for money. And WIFA is, again, the Water Infrastructure and Financing Authority of Arizona. It has a real historical function that all the states have, and that's to provide money through state revolving funds. There's federal money out there for low interest grants and loans, or rather low interest loans and some grants. In 2022, their statutory authorities changed significantly, allowing for them to have $1 billion to put towards new water resources to import from outside the state. That's coming down as about $333 million a year over 3 years. And there's also an additional $200 million for conservation, which I think is just absolutely great. The slide you see here, and it might be hard to see, but it's a Google Earth image that an applicant to that $1 billion has already provided WIFA, and that's a desalinization plant in the Gulf of Mexico, or rather the Sea of Cortez, to bring water all the way up into central Arizona and put it in the Cap Canal. I think it's amazing that this is being discussed today, and I think there's some bright future ahead of us. There's a very, very long road for WIFA to approve a project like this, or for a project like this to get off the ground. But I do like to show it. And I like to show it here also because it's relevant, because not only does this project bring water all the way up into the Cap Canal, but it's also going to put water out of the back end of the Cap Canal. You see the proponents of this proposal, IDE and this consortium of funders, have also worked with the Mexican government at a high level, and again, this is very new, but to provide desalinated water to some Mexican communities, including Nogales. So this project would also extend the Cap Canal past Sahuarita and Green Valley all the way down to Nogales, so giving us additional opportunities for more water resources in the future. Again, very far out there, but I think it's worthy of mentioning today. On to regulation changes, and boy, has there been a lot. In 2019, ADWR closed the Pinal AMA, where you see this red X. They didn't close it saying no one can have water. What they did do is they said, look, there's a lot of people that are asking for water, and we can't continue to approve more approvals for water for a very specific kind of permit, and that's an assured water supply permit, where a developer or a utility can apply to be allowed to subdivide lands. We have a designation of assured water supply in the Pinal AMA that we obtained by proving up the water supplies before it was closed. That's for the Maricopa municipal area. Others who've been applying for certificates of assured water supply, individual developers have been doing that for many, many years and trying to get more and more and more water. Ultimately, the department said, look, there's a lot of already approved analyses and certificates of assured water supply. We can't approve more. There's so much, in fact, growth hasn't slowed in Pinal. It actually accelerated through this last boom cycle. But it's a sign of good regulation, I think, where the Department of Water Resources is doing what it's supposed to do, and it says, hey, time out, enough is done. This area is kind of done. Well, they went on, and they did that recently. Well, I'm sorry, I'll go back before I go on. In 2021, Director Bushatsky said it's not if, but when this will occur in other parts of the state. Fast forward to this year, and the Douglas AMA was created, and that was created by a vote of the citizens. Just a couple weeks later, the Department of Water Resources declared the Wallapai INA, or irrigation non-expansion area. That's an area that cannot have increases in acreage for crops. Only people who were farming before it was created can continue to farm. So we're seeing more good regulations happening, really just states thinking about water being scarce the way it should, and it's doing good. We also have the western half of the Phoenix AMA, the lower Hassayampa subbasin, recently closed. A model was released that showed, hey, there's more asks than there is water, very similar to Pinal. There's a lot of work to do there. There'll be stakeholder processes there. They'll probably allow some more permits of assured water supply there in the Hassayampa, but it's going to be a long road on that. And by the way, these are all closures based on groundwater, native groundwater. So enough about the regulation piece, and maybe a few minutes on what we're doing. And we've been thinking about this for a long time. Again, we were founded on the fact that water is scarce. And we said, how do we want to think about this going forward? We have a really good track record, but what's the next step? How do you improve on 116 GBCD, or gallons per capita per day? Well, it's simple. Most of the water is still used outside. So what's the first thing on our 4x4 planning process? It's to address land use planning and irrigation. Can we help new development use less water from day one? Yes. Next section, rules, laws, policies, engage the community for positive change. How do we go about this together? I lead, or co-lead rather, a basin study in the greater Pinal active management area in and around Maricopa, Casa Grande, and so on, with our federal partner, Valerie Swick. The two of us work together along with numerous stakeholders, and many people bring their work to it, but to really bring water planning to the forefront in that whole area. Today, I'm really happy to say that we're working with others here, Community Water, Bureau of Reclamation, and Shana, and others, the Tohono O'odham Nation, to do the same kind of thing here. So it's in the early stages. There'll be an application process. Not certain it's going to go immediately. It might take a little bit of time before we get there, but that's really that second piece there. Recycled Water 2.0 sounds just like it is. Moving away, not just away, but on top of using recycled water directly in our communities to using it indirectly through recharge and recovery, or IPR, and ultimately through DPR and direct potable reuse, something we're studying and getting really smart about today. And last but not least, water augmentation. Just two more slides here. So we're in the Tucson AMA. It's a vast area, many miles, and this right graphic shows the extent of the entire Tucson AMA. To the north, extends many miles north of Red Rock along the 10 and east of there, and to the south all the way to the border with Mexico. In the middle, you see this green box, and that green box, a purple shape, and that purple shape is represented by the other side. That's the greater aquifer, the modeled area of the groundwater aquifer. And a lot of people like to think about the aquifer as a bathtub. It's an easy way to describe it. And it is in a sense, but it's not a bathtub where water just moves freely from one side to the other. It's full of sediments, sands, rock, silt, and clay. And water doesn't really move laterally very easily. It moves up and down. And actually these colors on this slide to the left depict that. You can see Avra Valley, where Tucson stores a lot of water, is very purple and very cool. They've stored a lot of water there over the years. And you can see other areas are yellow, but you can see down in our area, it's green, which I like to see when I look at a map of water.
John, could you go back to that slide and just point out where, with your finger, where Sahuarita sits right now? Thank you.
So that's a good color, I'm assuming, right?
It's a good color,
Good
yes.
color, okay.
Yes. Yeah, water levels in the northernmost areas here have come up over 100 feet. And this is a slide I borrowed from Tucson. It just so fortuitously landed in my lap the other day from a study they did in a presentation they put on at WIFA. I thought it really fit in well today. But a couple of attributes to think about the basin as well. It's gigantic. It's thousands of square miles. It's also thousands of feet deep. So when we think about water levels that are tens or hundreds of feet below land surface, in the deepest parts, the aquifer is actually 12,000 feet below land surface. So there is a vast amount of water there. I think in this area, it's between 800 and 1,600 feet, getting deeper as you get a little bit away. So there's quite a bit of water here. That said, it's our precious groundwater, and we still do want to save it. So we still gotta take it seriously, and that's why we're working through firming up our water supplies through a designation of assured water supply. It's the preferred path. It's really, it's the institutional infrastructure of water. It really is that building block that allows us to continue to grow the right way and use water the right way. Of course, Farmers Water Company is located in Tucson Active Management Area, and historically that area has been built by individual certificates of assured water supply that developers have went out and got. And it's been very slowly and over time, and the developer doesn't get a certificate and maintain a long time. They get it and they get to develop and move on. But when we seek a designation, we're going to seek it for the entire service area, and then we have it and maintain it before the Department of Water Resources year after year. We have to report and they have to check. Some important attributes to this approach allows us to actually shrink the overall water footprint. Right now, there's a large analysis of assured water supply that landowners hold, and that is for a large bucket of water. Ultimately, we'll end up with a smaller designation of assured water supply. Of course, agriculture historically uses about 4 acre-feet per acre, some instances more, some a little bit less, but on average about 4 acre-feet per acre. In the municipal subdivisions we serve, it's about 1.25, actually a little bit less than that, 1.25 acre-feet per acre. So we're seeing a really shrinking of the overall water footprint. And lastly, a DAWS is really a conduit to how we can do things differently. It's that institutional infrastructure, that paper we're going to have with ADWR and the right permitting and the right meetings with ADWR talking about what we're doing and getting them to understand how we'll do it. And some of those big pieces will be importing water supplies in the future. You see certain areas right now that have developed in water providers in other parts of the state that have developed relying on certificates of assured water supply obtained by developers actually are seeing huge barriers to importing new water supplies. So they want to go out and get them, but because of the way their institutional infrastructure is set up, they're not able to do that. But by obtaining a designation of assured water supply, we break down some of those prohibitions on commingling barriers because we'll own the whole process, that whole piece of institutional infrastructure, if you will, and it will allow us to have a designation and allow the community to continue to thrive. Lastly, the large lakes, they're rising, but the drought is still here, of course. And we're going to continue to bring total water management here. I mentioned our conservation programs. I mentioned smart meters as it pertains to other service areas. They're coming here in about a year. We're pursuing a designation of assured water supply today, something we got started on before we took ownership in February, something that's going to take probably about 2 years. And that'll ultimately allow us to reduce the overall water footprint and allow us for the importation of additional water supplies. And with that, Mayor, Council, thank you.
Thank you. And would I be correct? Thank you for being here this evening, obviously. Because when I was listening to working with the developers, it's sort of what they need as they work through their project, where, no pun intended, you have more of a global focus on the total water management, which with a much longer horizon on looking at it, because again, developers need the water to build their project, but then they kind of, move on after they build out, where you're really looking at it on the long-term basis. Would I be correct in stating that?
That's right. Our CEO likes to say we're in the forever business.
Right.
We're putting pipes underground and pouring cement. We own these assets that are buried, and we're going to be here maintaining them forever.
Right. And I know that my Councilmember Bracco a couple weeks ago sent me an article on PFAS and PFOS and how many billions of dollars it was going to cause. Well, they mentioned municipal water companies, but I mean, it's all water companies. So I don't think, if you want to touch on that, that's fine, but I don't know if we could probably have a better partner as opposed to, if we were trying to manage this as newbies, so to speak, when you're getting, because you don't know when these regulatory changes are going to come. Arsenic was a few years ago, and you have to manage that, and now you have PFAS and PFOS, and I know there's been issues with it up in the Marana area and the Tucson area, hopefully not as much down here, but you never know when they cut those regulatory requirements, if you just wanted to touch on that really quickly.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to defer to John. John actually has a couple slides on this specific to that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Did anybody else have any questions before? No. Okay, thanks. Oh, you get an applause too.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and council members. I'll touch on, to your point, PFAS really quickly, and just give a quick update on that since it's been in the news and it's been kind of top of mind in the utility industry recently. So really quick, PFAS is kind of a generic term for a bunch of man-made chemicals, PFOA and PFOS kind of being the predominant ones, but basically a number of chemicals that have been around since the 1940s. They've kind of become more kind of in our consciousness really over the past 20 years. And I'll talk about kind of some of the regulation the EPA has been putting in place and looking at over the past decade, really. PFAS, chemicals that are found in things such as firefighting foam, that's kind of a popular one, nonstick cookware, food packaging, and other items as well. And prolonged exposure to these chemicals can cause issues such as negative effects on pregnant women, a weakened immune system, or increased cholesterol, things along those lines. So negative health impact, and that's why it's certainly something that's being focused on by the Environmental Protection Agency right now. So the EPA, like I said, over the past 20 years, it's kind of become more in the consciousness, but it's been around for many more years, even beyond that. Some things that have happened really over the past decade. So starting actually in 2013, they did a round of testing for these chemicals as part of what's called the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule, round 3 of that. So that occurred in 2013. Then more recently in 2016, the EPA issued advisory levels for these chemicals at 70 parts per trillion. And then in June of 2022, so last summer, they actually revised those health alerts to a much, much, much lower level at 0.004 parts per trillion. Just a few weeks ago, they actually came out with a draft rule for regulating these chemicals. And so right now, they're proposing 6 of these chemicals to be regulated and at a level of 4 parts per trillion. So not quite as low as the health advisory, but still quite low. Parts per trillion, you're getting down to a very fine amount of chemical there. So the EPA expects to finalize this rule later this year based on input from the community. So, we do plan to be involved with that along with our industry partners in that rulemaking process. And then in addition to that, over the next 3 years, so this year, next year in 2025, the EPA is actually doing another round of sampling it's actually 29 of these chemicals in addition to lithium, I believe. And so that's called UCMR 5. So it's kind of the 5th round of the sampling protocol that the EPA does every 5 years. So that will sample in larger systems throughout the United States for these chemicals and a much wider suite of these chemicals than have been sampled for in previous exercises. So for Global Waters utilities here in and around the town of Sahuarita, that includes our Las Quintas Serena system and then 2 of the public water systems within Farmers Water Company. There's 4 total within Farmers Water Company, so 2 of those have already been sampled and 2 more will be sampled in 2024. So a little bit about what Global Water's doing. Like I mentioned, there's this UCMR 5 round of sampling. There's also Arizona Department of Environmental Quality received a grant or funding of $3 million to go around the state and pull samples in smaller systems that aren't part of the UCMR 5 sampling protocol. And so we actually reached out to ADEQ proactively and said, hey, we'd like you to come sample our systems that qualify for this. So they were actually in Pima County in our utilities a few weeks ago and pulled sampling in a number of these systems. And the good news is all the systems where they pulled samples, they were all non-detect, meaning there was no presence of any of these chemicals within the wells that they sampled within our utility. So obviously that's a good thing, and we hope to keep that up within the other utilities or other public water systems that'll be sampled. Like I said, here's a little map of kind of areas that have been sampled over time in and around the town of Sahuarita. The good news is none of the areas that have been sampled have ever had a present sample. There are some areas a little bit north of town, and like you mentioned, Mayor, that have had presence for some of these chemicals, but the good news is here in and around the town, that hasn't been the case. Like I said, 2 of our systems have been sampled, that being the Sahuarita and the Sahuarita Highlands public water systems as part of Farmers Water Company. And then we are also working with ADQ to see if we can get some additional systems sampled prior to the UCMR 5 sampling that is scheduled to take place next year in those 2 remaining systems in Farmers Water Company. So kind of the takeaway there is, no positive samples so far. We're going to continue to try to get more sampling done in and around the community. And, we'll continue to work with our industry groups to stay up to speed on the new rule and when it's going to go into place and what that really means to us as a utility. And then as more available information comes to us, we're happy to share that with the town. So that concludes my comments. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No? Well, just thanks for the partnership. I know as quickly as last year when we were putting it together, your presence at Fiesta Sahuarita, there was a lot of folks at the table and asking questions and things like that. So I think that communication has been beyond what I was hoping it would be. So if we can help continue that, I really appreciate it. And thanks for your presence working with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Next, Madam Clerk, item number 12.
Presentation, public hearing, and discussion regarding ordinance number 2023-164, approving the rezoning of approximately 14.85 acres of land, Park Corporation La Cañada rezoning, generally located on the northeast corner of the La Cañada Drive and Duval Mine Road in Sahuarita, Arizona, APN 303-33-5600, from rural residential, GR1, to local business, B1.
Thank you very much. And Anna Cassidy, our planning and building director, will present this item. And what we'll do is we're going to hear from staff. I'll ask questions of council. And then after that's completed, I have some call to the public during the public hearing. I'll open that up. But first, Anna and Orlanthia, please begin.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy, members of the council. Orlanthia Henderson is going to give the presentation this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My presentation will be on the La Cañada rezoning application, project case number SA 9-22-00002. First, what is a rezoning? A rezoning is a process used to change the zoning designation of a parcel or property. A rezoning must be in conformance with general plan policies and the general plan land use map. Rezonings require a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as a public hearing with Town Council. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on this project on February 6, 2023. A little background on the project. The applicant is requesting to rezone their property from GR1, rural residential, to B1, local business. The project is approximately 14.85 acres and is located north of Duval Mine Road and east of La Cañada Drive. The general plan land use designation for the property is commercial. The project is also identified as being within the general plan designated growth area. Here's a map of the location. The project is highlighted by a yellow rectangle. Located north of the project is a subdivision called Santa Rita Villas. Located east is the Green Valley RV Resort. La Cañada Drive is directly west of the site, with Duval Mine Road located south of the project. The project is in conformance with the general plan and meets policies from the general plan. Examples of policies it meets are listed. They include land use or LU 2.2, 3.2, and 4.1. They also meet growth area or GA 1.1 and GA 1.4. The application ensures future growth provides a mixture of land uses. It encourages sufficient densities near commercial centers and provides a wide range of housing types. The application also prioritizes growth in areas with planned and or existing infrastructure and focuses new high-intensity development in growth areas. This slide provides information from the general plan land use map. This project is located with a yellow dashed box. The red signifies the commercial land use designation with high-density residential adjacent. That's the Green Valley RV Resort, and mixed use for the Santa Rita Villas subdivision to the north. The zoning map here shows the current zoning for the property, and that's GR1, as well as neighboring properties. The purple is TH for Trailer Homestead, and that is the location of Green Valley RV Resort. The red is commercial, and that is B2. B1 is a sort of darker orange color. The closest is the Duval Commerce Center. It has the current Ashley Furniture and Planet Fitness business. As part of a rezoning application, a preliminary development plan is required. The applicant has submitted 2 concepts. Concept A is proposing 13 buildings with a max number of residential units at 276. The proposed building height is the same for both concepts. They're both proposing 3-story buildings. The proposed B1 zone has a max height of 39 feet. The applicant has also provided a view shed analysis for each concept. The view shed analysis shows an existing condition as well as simulated views. This view is from the north, adjacent to Santa Rita Villas. Here is a second view shed provided by the applicant for concept A. It has existing conditions and simulated conditions from the Green Valley RV Resort. The existing is on the left and the proposed is on the right. Concept B is slightly different from concept A. Concept B provides 1.75 acres of commercial located near the southwest part of the parcel. The total number of buildings proposed for this concept is 12. The previous is 13. With a total number of units at 252. The applicant also provided concept views or simulated views for this concept, and it's very similar to concept A. This view is from Santa Rita Villas, and this view is from the Green Valley RV Resort. As part of a rezoning application, an applicant is required to host a neighborhood meeting before submitting their application to the town. The applicant held the neighborhood meeting on July 1st of last year, 2022. 3 neighboring property owners attended the meeting. Freeport, the manager from Green Valley RV Resort, as well as a representative from Santo Tomas Villas HOA. As part of the public notice requirements from the town code, public notice was provided in the Green Valley newspaper on March 5th. Mailed notice was also provided to adjacent property owners within 300 feet. A courtesy notice was provided to residents within Green Valley RV Resort that fell within the 300-foot buffer. 3 public notice signs were posted on site on the property. Staff also provided the notice on the town website. Public comment has been received, mostly concerns, but there were a few in support. They're attached to your packet, as well as a petition. Here is a summary of most of the concerns from those comment letters. They included traffic, structure height in regards to privacy, water availability, drainage, density, impact to first responders, school capacity, the occupants of the apartments, population increase, impact on the natural environment, and sewer capacity. As mentioned previously, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing on February 6th. At the meeting, 21 community members spoke with concern and opposition. There were 3 members of the public that voiced their support. The Planning Commission voted 3-1 and recommended approval of the rezoning application with conditions. The next step for the rezoning process includes a town council public hearing. After the public hearing, town council can make the final decision on the application. Before any development can take place, a development plan must be approved by the town. Development review includes review of technical documents like a drainage report, a traffic report, as well as a review of the detailed site plan, building elevations, and landscaping. Staff is recommending approval of the rezoning with conditions. The reason for the recommendation of approval is because the rezoning is in conformance with adopted town policies, including the general plan policies. It is in conformance with the general plan land use and growth areas map and furthers the town's strategic plan goal for workforce housing. The recommendation also supports infill of an area located on an arterial road with the existing infrastructure. The proposed zoning is also consistent with surrounding zoning. Staff has provided the recommended motion. It includes the 3 specific conditions. Condition 1 of approval is a town code requirement. Town council may specifically delete condition 1 if desired. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. We do have representatives of the applicant as well as a traffic engineer.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to have the applicant come up in a second. When we're talking about the 39, can you just give me an example of various other buildings in the town that are 39 feet or higher, if either you or Anna are aware of those?
I can field it.
Or Mr. Dilly.
I can field it if you want.
Go ahead.
So, Town Hall, at its height, is 39.5 feet.
Height meaning the very top?
Very top.
The very top, okay.
The church next door is 40 feet, and the hospital is 43 feet.
Okay, thanks. It's good information.
All be shorter than those 3 buildings, this proposed.
Councilman Bracco? Questions, that's okay, for staff, and then I'll have the applicant come up and say a few things.
Couple of, in the read ahead, it talked about getting a will serve letter from Community Water of Green Valley, and Pima County Wastewater can handle it. Has there been any coordination with SUSD?
And I've had the applicant can touch on that, because I've had a conversation. If you want to right now, why don't you come up to the, mainly we have to have you there because of being on the record and hearing it on the tape. And you could, answer Councilman Bracco's question, and then if you want to.
Then I have another one for you.
Okay. Well, he'll keep going.
Councilman Bracco, I can answer that question. Since last fall, we've been in communication with the district and Dr. Valenzuela's office, and in particular, Assistant Superintendent Downs. And I'm pleased to tell you that middle of last week, the governing board's attorney approved the final language. And so the parties have a meeting of the minds of a contribution agreement, and we're in the process of circulating that for execution right now.
Okay, great. The other point I've got is, there was the talk of affordable housing in the general plan and workforce housing. Do you have a range of rents that these would go for to see that it is truly affordable housing, or?
Thank you for the question, Councilman Bracco. Really, at no time have I ever asserted that the intended development could potentially be affordable housing. How I would answer that question is that there'll be market-based rents, and they'll be on par or maybe a slight premium to existing rents in the immediate area. And I guess that's my response.
Right. I guess potentially that will also just bring more offerings, more different offerings. We have a lot of transient community with Border Patrol, Raytheon, and the base. And really, it's just bringing more product line, wouldn't you say, on there as opposed to
Absolutely.
single-family housing?
There'd be probably, with this number of units, there'd probably be, 6 or 7 different configurations of different rental types within the one community, going all the way from studio to probably, I would say, at most, maybe 2-bedroom. I doubt there being 3-bedroom apartments, but yes, a wide range of choices, yes, at market rents.
Right. And I'll open up to other questions, but it just made me think of it, when you saw the conditions, because one of my questions was about the school, so I was happy to hear that, but also the conditions that the P&Z put on that. Could you comment on any or all of those, on your comfort level and
Sure.
your stance?
Yes, we've had time to reflect on those, and they both came about in response to the numerous concerns from our neighboring property. I think I'm probably correct that all of the negative comments that came for this case emanated from the one neighborhood to the east of us. A lot of the, I'll speak in my presentation addressing some of the services and the infrastructure concerns that they've articulated, but some of the concerns that aren't related to that are, the proximity of these taller buildings than what they anticipated would be next to them. And so it was proposed, and we agreed, and we stand by the agreement that we can create this 80-foot setback, which exceeds the current requirements significantly, so that any portion of any building that would fall within that area would be limited to 2 stories instead of 3. And we're comfortable with that. And also, there's a lot of discussion about the current conditions of Duval Mine Road, and particularly the access drive for the RV park. It's important to realize that this project doesn't access Duval Mine Road. It accesses La Canada, although, there will be additional traffic on Duval Mine Road, fairly nominal. But yes, we're comfortable with the condition of approval that was suggested. I thought it was an artful way to get us to where we got, and we're okay with it.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mr.
Did you want, well, first, any other questions, and then I'll allow you to go into your presentation if you like. But is there any other quick questions before he goes into that? Yes. Okay. Why don't you proceed, please?
Very good. I'll do that. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Director Cassidy, and Manager Henderson. My name is Morgan Neville. I'm here on behalf of my company, the Park Corporation, as the applicant for the proposed ordinance here tonight. We're seeking a rezone of one of our vacant land parcels. We certainly appreciate staff's assistance and cooperation through this process. I was going over my emails last week, and we had our pre-app meeting in February of last year. Here we are, a little over a year later. So I'll sleep better tomorrow night after all this is done. Appreciate Manager Henderson's thorough presentation. I'll just jump right in. I'm joined this evening by 2 individuals. One is Brian Underwood. He's with the Planning Center. Brian helped assist with the application and all of the technical documents that you've seen for the preliminary development plans were done by the Planning Center. He can answer any specific questions council members may have about that. Kim Carroll is here. She's a traffic engineer sitting right there, just raised her hand. She's with Kimley Horn. They prepared the traffic impact statement, which was reviewed and accepted by the town. The Park Corporation is a private family business. We've owned land in Sarita for 37 years, beginning with our acquisition of the Twin Buttes mine. We sold the mine in 2009 to Freeport-McMoRan. Our current land holdings consist of 6 parcels of vacant, undeveloped commercial land totaling 25 acres. 14 of those acres are currently rural residential. 4 of those parcels, which are the C2 parcels, are on the south side of Duval Mine Road, west of the I-19 interchange and east of the Safeway. So if you can imagine that stretch of vacant land, we own those parcels. In addition, the triangular shape that was shown directly south of the subject property is 5.4 acres. It's also zoned B2, and it's adjoining immediately south of this subject property. It's the hard northeast corner of Duval Mine Road in La Canada. I mention this parcel in particular because ultimately how this parcel develops is really important to us. So we're not just here to get some zoning and then just go willy-nilly and hand it off to someone else. We own what, in my estimation, is a much more valuable piece of land immediately south of there, so we care very much about how this parcel is ultimately developed. We're pursuing this application to rezone at this time because of the interest in the development community to pursue higher density multifamily specifically on this property, and to address a very real and articulated need for additional residential choices and inventory, which you're just referring to, Mr. Mayor, for the healthy growth of the community. Over the last several years, I've received multiple calls and inputs and some feedback with people expressing interest for the potential for multifamily on this parcel. As I started making inquiries with staff and reviewing the public record, I began to understand the almost critical need for additional residential inventory in Sahuarita, and particularly the need for more choices and availability of multifamily for rent product. The town's general plan, as Manager Henderson pointed out clearly, not only designates this property as commercial, but more important, as equally important as this area falls within a designated growth area. So by putting forth these two proposed development plans or potential development plans as part of this rezoning, we're absolutely conforming to the town's general plan on numerous policies and goals, but also we're making the next critical and required step to ensure that sufficient densities, mix of uses, and providing additional choices and supply of critically needed housing for the community are set into motion. And importantly, this is being proposed in a key designated growth area with all the required existing infrastructure in place to accommodate the proposed uses. Just so happens this parcel is ideally sized, it's ideally located, and it's supported by all the existing infrastructure that would be required to provide for an excellent high-density multifamily development. I don't know if there's a better match within the town limits of this ideal opportunity for the critical need that the town has. I'll take just a few minutes to proactively address a couple areas of concern which have been expressed by the public during this process. And while we're sympathetic to a lot of these concerns, we do have a different position on the facts regarding several of the concerns of the neighboring residents, particularly as they pertain to infrastructure and services. I'm just going to hit these very briefly. Water supply, and darn it, I wish the water experts wouldn't have just vacated the room. But water is available. Councilman Bracco, we do have a signed will serve letter from Community Water. They are the designated water service provider, utility provider, and standard business for them to issue that letter. Not only for domestic water supply, but for fire service for the development. And, their normal process will be followed. Once an actual development plan is determined, then we'll submit a water plan. The future developer will submit a water plan, and Community Water will review that, make any necessary changes. But they have assured us through that written letter that the required pressures exist, the infrastructure exists. There's a 12-inch line that runs immediately adjacent to the property. Likewise for sewer, the Pima County Wastewater has issued a service letter stating that the capacity and connectivity is available for this parcel. Councilman Bracco, you saved me any talking about the school district and the impacts on that, and we were glad that we were able to negotiate that with Dr. Valenzuela's team, and we appreciate all the help and support that they were through that process. Drainage. no doubt, large and frequent rain events impact us all. Drainage is a concern. It's a problem. It's particularly a problem on undeveloped land. But as staff knows, and maybe as council is likely aware, that really the ultimate and permanent and effective solution to storm drain issues is the actual development of the property. And through that process, it's be required by the developer to have a drainage plan that's designed by a civil engineer. They'll analyze a 50-year event, 24-hour occurring 50-year event, which is a very large rain event, and they design infrastructure to support all the on-site flows that are created by the development. All those are required to be kept on site, yes, and retained. All the off-site flows are required to be, gathered and conveyed and continued off-site in a safe manner downstream. And there's 2 hardened channels on both sides of the RV park designed specifically for that. And so the off-site drainage, I anticipate, will be directed to both of those channels. Traffic, regarding the concern of increased traffic on Duval Mine Road, I think we talked extensively about that planning and zoning. And although this property and this project do not access Duval Mine Road, we do have our traffic engineer available this evening to discuss any questions that the council has, and we're prepared to answer any of those. I've crossed off a lot of my notes because this meeting went very long, and I want to spare you all. So pardon me why I skipped the stuff I've crossed off. I guess I'll just kind of work towards concluding that, we've never minimized the feelings or the concerns of our neighbors. But certainly the concerns that are related to infrastructure and services, they're just unfounded. They're not supported by the reality of the facts. But of course, these people, their feelings, their views, their sense of community, they all matter. I said that last month. I say it again. I mean it. They're our neighbors. They'll continue to be our neighbors. And this is why we've listened. And this is why we tried to find a compromise or at least some accommodations to help offset their concerns. For example, the 80-foot setback that we've agreed to. So what's left is their very real sense that things are going to change and that they'll no longer have a vacant land parcel next to them that has served as a buffer to the rest of the world in that direction. But this is true. This is the reality, and the eventual reality is that this land will be developed. It's privately owned. We've been great stewards of the land. We've been great members of this community. What this ordinance is proposing is additional commercial and potentially higher density residential, which fits a very specific and important need for the growth of the community and answers a lot of the stated goals of the town and the council. It's in perfect harmony with the town's vision as it's articulated in some general plan. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks. We're happy to address any questions you may have, and ultimately, I respectfully request each of your support and an affirmative vote for this ordinance.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, I think you had a question.
My first question was, back to this, the recommended motion, you said item 2 and 3 you're okay with. I didn't hear, are you okay with the first one?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I had that.
Yeah.
And then I have a question for, and I don't know if it goes to you or to the applicant. They show wonderful pictures. I am seeing lots of wonderful pictures on projects, and they have beautiful trees that are planted there. I wanted to know who maintains those trees to make sure that they don't die and they don't replant them. Talking about the view shed for the neighbors.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy and Vice Mayor Egbert. A landscape buffer yard will be required. We'll require a landscape plan when they come in with their development plan. We'll review that and make sure that all of the required trees and shrubs are in place. If those trees are allowed to die off, it will become a code enforcement issue and they'll have to replant them.
Okay, so if this does pass and the neighbors notice that the trees are not being kept up and are not living, they would reach out to you guys to have that code enforcement.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right, because I think for the council to remember, this is a rezoning, and there's another bite at the apple, whether it's the landscape plan, or the drainage, or traffic, or whatever it might be. When the actual development comes in, when and if, all of these things are required to actually be submitted on there. Any other questions before I move on? Did either one of you want to touch on anything that you've heard previously or tonight, or I can go right to the public hearing? Okay, thank you. No other questions? At this time, I'll open the public hearing, and we have a few call to public cards. And since I made him, he started and then I made him sit down, I'm going to begin with Donald Holland, and then Shirley Holland I had, and then I'll move on, be Donald, then Shirley, and then I'll begin with Patricia Williams. So Donald, if you wanted to, yep.
Oh, it's Bob Robinson.
Oh, oh, did I have, oh, okay, yes, that's who I know I sent away, so I'll have to find that card, thank you.
Anyway, I was interested tonight that in the legislative update, they mentioned the housing shortage, because that's actually probably my main idea regarding this development. I think Tucson is going to continue to have the Tucson area. And by the way, I live in Green Valley, 1501 Pecana Way.
Thank you.
Part your resident. I think the Tucson area is going to continue to have a lot of growth for the foreseeable future. And from what I've seen, it seems like there's a lot of upscale housing, $400,000, $500,000 houses being built. But of course, there are a lot of people that can't afford that kind of housing, young families. And multifamily housing is the way to go. The housing shortage, it really has a bite to it, because it drives up housing costs, of course, supply and demand. So I am in favor of the development there, and I actually live quite close to there, about a half a mile away, so it's in my neighborhood. But I believe that multifamily housing is just needed for most people, and so for that reason, I'm in favor of putting it in there. And I think that at the intersection there is an especially good place, because it does have good access to the major roadways. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Donald, then Shirley, unless you're tag teaming on that, and then Patricia Williams.
Thank you, Council and Mayor and Vice Mayor. I've had a stroke. I have aphasia, so bear with me with my difficulties in speech.
Thank you.
Thank you for the Park Corporation being in this area for 37 or 39 years.
37 years, they mentioned.
My family has been here about 125 years. And we have seen a lot of improvements, changes, some for the better, some for the worse. But our concern is, once the camel has got underneath the edge of the tent, it's not going to stop. We might as well have 100 or 200 or 300 or 400 or 1,000 units of people here. That won't stop. I appreciate Park's concern. I really believe in private property, and I believe that this variance is going to be approved, but my family, the ones that are in the ground and the ones that are up, oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Shirley Holland? Or, no? Oh, oh, that's okay. Patricia Williams.
Permission to present our papers
Yeah, present them to Lisa Cole, the town clerk, and then she can distribute them to the council members. Yes.
So do I have to do something, or is this okay?
You can bring the microphone down.
Yeah, you
I
can.
don't need to, no, just
No, bend it
just
from the
this.
top down.
Okay.
There you go.
How's that?
Good.
Too loud?
No, you're fine.
No, we're fine.
Okay. My name is Pat Williams. My husband and I have been coming to Green Valley RV Resort for 23 years, and we've had an annual home there for 10 years. Our resort was established 39 years ago, 10 years before Sahuarita was incorporated. We have 304 sites for residents over 55 years old. Many of us fell in love with Green Valley RV Resort and all it has to offer. We established this as our retirement home and plan to live here as long as possible. We know that the land to the west of us would eventually be developed, as was the land on the other sides, but we knew it was zoned GR1, or rural residential. We also knew that in your vision of the future of Sahuarita, you specified that your plan was to disperse land use and not to cluster multi-housing into one area. Let's look at the present. In our park, we have 304 units that can house 600 people. In our sister RV park, less than half a mile away, has 162 units that can house 300 people. Across the street from us are the Sandstone Ridge Apartments and two others close by, the Del Coronado and the Sahuarita Mission. Right behind us are the Santa Rita Villas, consisting of 79 two-story townhouses. 191 more are to be built within the next 2 years. An estimated number of people to occupy the villas alone is over 900. All four will be less than a fourth of a mile away. And now, with this proposal for 13 three-story buildings holding 800 more people, that makes well over 3,000 people behind us, across from us, and to the west of us. We believe this to be very much clustering. Some residents from our park attended your last council meeting, and part of the agenda was the subject of tiny homes. As a council, you brought up the fact that if people were to buy in a subdivision and then suddenly their neighbor put up a tiny home in their backyard with a window looking into their backyard, you would be outraged. A quote from the council that night, "Not in my backyard." But now, that is us, with many scheduled to look into our backyards. We built and invested in our homes with the knowledge that R1 zoning meant single-story family homes were going to be built there. In conclusion, we ask you to ask yourselves, would you want this in your backyard? Please do not let this rezoning go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Dankert?
My name is Kim Dankert, but I'm talking for Eric Felden, who was not able to be here tonight.
Okay.
I've been coming to Green Valley since 2012. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you all for that you serve to protect our great country. Thank you for the opportunity to speak concerning the proposing zone change to the property west of Green Valley RV Resort. The proposed zoning changes directly affects our quality of life. The source of the following information are from Minneapolis Center of Urban Development, Regional Affairs, Urban Studies Program, San Francisco State University, Metonic Real Estate Solutions. The source for these quotes quoted information is enclosed as an attachment in your packet. The proposed high-density development consists of 13 three-story apartments, 276 units in debate. Urban studies recommend apartment complexes of 50 units or less spaced through the city. This recommendation is based on neighborhood crime, livability, and interaction with neighbors. We are not opposed to progress and the need for affordable housings, which is housing that occupants pay no more than 30% of their gross income. The study found the number of calls made to police significantly declined when following the 50 units or less planned for affordable housing. The present crime rate for Sahuarita is 9 per 100 residents, which is the average for Arizona. If the 50-unit complex formula is followed, it has a minimal effect on property value as well as crime. When high-density housing development occurs, the need for neighborhood watch programs become necessary. These watch signs are erected by local law enforcement are meant to deter crime. These neighborhood watch signs are already visible in 3 apartment complexes that exist in adjoining residential areas southwest of Duval Mine Road and east of La Canada. In the vision for Sahuarita to become an urban area like Tucson or remain family and community orientated. For your website, Sahuarita was listed as one of the best places to live in Arizona because of the rural feeling, with most people owning their houses. In closing, I urge you not to support the MIA with only one goal in mind: profit at the expense of the city. One more comment, please, quickly.
Quickly.
When he stated that there's 3 places that have buildings over 39 feet, not one of them was a housing development. They were all commercial buildings.
Thank you. Dave Everett.
Distance to warm my knee up.
That's okay.
Sorry. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for letting me speak tonight about this proposed zone request. We have by way of a short resume, I was hired by the Kent Washington Police Department in 1972, a fresh out of Vietnam combat vet. I retired after 29 years as a captain. Part of my command was a 75 officer patrol division. In 1972, Kent was 17,500 people and 17 square miles, about 1,000 people a mile. In 2001, when I retired, it was 125,000 people on 28 square miles, nearly 4,500 people per square acre, or per square mile. Anecdotally and germane to this issue, before you tonight, one of the multitudes of apartment complexes the city encompassed was a 20-acre, 500-unit development. It was only a few years old when I got there, and at the time, calls for service consisted primarily of loud noise complaints and an occasional reckless driver. The complex was sold several times as it aged, and the occupancy rate was very high early on due to its young age and required very little maintenance. During the next 6 to 10 years, rents increased with CPI, the buildings and facilities began to show signs of age, and the quality of tenants began to slide. Because of the age of the complex and the lack of tenant screening, occupancy rate began to fall. The tenant population began to include members of local gangs, something unheard of in the heydays of its newness. Gangs from the Seattle area would drive into the complex, stop, arm themselves, and shoot up a building that they suspected contained or occupied by members of a rival gang, and then flee the area. Something that the sleepy little town of Kent never, ever dreamed of in my early days of policing. There were 2 access points to the complex, one of which the police department chained closed to prevent this drive-through access to outside gangs. In addition, we stationed undercover officers on a private security, with private security, on a 24-hour basis. That officer checked license plates leaving and entering the complex and alerted local other officers outside and to make appropriate arrests. His other job was to protect a security agent who was threatened regularly. These drivers were arrested and booked into jail. No quarter, they went to jail. Eventually, we had made it so likely to go to jail that the bad guys, quote unquote, all moved out. We had a duty to do this to the surrounding area. The complex was in financial trouble. In the last 2 to 3 years before this point, deferred maintenance caught up with them. The complex was sold and a new owner did a total eviction for a massive rehab project. They finished the project, the complex was like new, and it was safe. Due to the overabundance of multifamily development, the city of Kent was among the highest density populated incorporated cities in the state of Washington, population to area, and has in the past been statistically the most dangerous city in the state. The citizens of Sahuarita deserve better than this. It's easy to say, well, this is just a small part and it won't make a difference in the long run, but I tell you, history says it will. There's a cumulative effect. Apartment dwellers and renters are not bad people. But, one minute?
Well, no, just wrap up in the next couple of sentences.
Yeah. Apartment dwellers and renters are not bad people, but at the density of the proposed project, and as the property ages, it will attract unsavory characters. Approving this rezone proposal is a recipe for a slow-burning fuse to disaster. I want to personally tell you of the consequences of the ultra-high density living situations and urge you earnestly not to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I hear you say that was a 500-acre project?
20-acre, 500 unit.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry, if I may have done that.
No, that's okay. It was probably in my ears. Dave Powers?
Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is Dale Powers. I'm a local taxpayer, a registered voter here in Arizona, and I'm also president of the Green Valley RV Tenants Association. The resort is located within Sahuarita. You have received copies of our petitions submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board. These were all signed by almost all of our annual residents. They all opposed the rezoning. Many of these individuals vote. Many are here tonight. Raise your hands if you are. I'd like to again remind you that the Green Valley RV Resort opened in 1984, a full 10 years before Sahuarita was incorporated. Our resort's residents invested in their homes in the resort with the expectation that single-family residents would be built on this parcel next door, not 3-story, high-density apartments. They invested their homes here, enjoying the western views of the sunsets over the mine. There are no 3-story apartments currently in Sahuarita. Why experiment on this parcel? In the emails I sent to each of you last Tuesday, which is included in the public comments section starting on page 124, I included a few of the pictures from our drone. You saw the impact of our view west, as well as the amazing loss of privacy we experienced in the park. As you viewed those images, I challenge you to ask yourself if you'd allow the views from your neighborhood to be impacted as viewed here. We had the drone hover at approximately the height and setback of the proposed buildings. You can see a few of those images before you. Since I've been denied permission to show our images and video on the drone's flight on your monitors, we have blown up 4 to share with you. The views west show a totally different perspective than Mr. Neville tried to show in his viewshed simulation exhibits attached in your packet as number 7. Trees will not cover the buildings. Rather, as you can see, our sunset views to the west are decimated, but the views into our park are more unnerving. Our privacy would be violated. Many of the residents leave for the summer months. Their comings and goings would easily be monitored with these views into our resort. We expect theft and vandalism to be the future issue of the resort if the apartments are built. Currently, these are not issues within the resort. This was an impact mentioned by Kim in her recommendation of smaller number of apartments being clustered in multiple locations to avoid this risk. This conclusion was based upon the effect of high-density apartments found in other cities. Again, I ask you, would you permit a similar loss of views as well as invasion of your privacy in your neighborhood? If not, why allow it here? Why build apartments here with these huge negative impacts upon our community? Please deny this zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Harrison?
There we go, that's better. Hello, my name's Al Harrison. I'm an annual resident at Green Valley RV Resort. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to address the drainage plan for the complex. We believe we heard a 25-year storm at the last presentation. Tonight, he says it's a 50-year storm plan, so I'll continue to address it that way. We disagree with that proposal. We believe it's much more appropriate to have a 100-year storm plan. And to explain, a 100-year storm only occurs somewhere around 100 years in between. It's random. And per NOAA, we went back and took a look at the historical data. Green Valley RV has been flooded badly at least 3 times since 1990. We've had a 50-year storm, a 25-year storm, and a 100-year storm, and all 3 times we've been flooded. What happens when we get flooded is that it takes out the walls, and it causes lots of damage within the park, and then people's property gets washed away. Many cities in Arizona have a 1-year or 100-year storm plan. And in the handout that I had for you, you'll see some references to take a look at that. Some lessons that we've learned from the data is that you have to do it right the first time and maintain the system. And if you try to correct it later, sometimes you really can't fix it. You have to do it right. I have personal experience with this. We purchased a home. Behind the home was woods. They put in houses, maximum density. They took out the catch basins. We got flooded, and the city engineer could never fix it. We ended up getting flooded every 11 years. So to reiterate in detail, this is what we're asking for. A 100-year storm plan. You're going to get more runoff from the buildings and from the parking lots. It's not just fallow ground or undeveloped land. Make sure you have extra catch basins and oversize your drainage, and then that way you should be able to handle it. I've given you in the packet the actual frequency estimates for Green Valley and also the Pima County Flood Control Report for July of 21, and that's when we were damaged badly with that. So thank you very much. I appreciate you for letting me speak.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Orlanthea or Anna, when typical developments come in, you know, if you're 25, 50, now 100, what is usually the requirement for matching drainage against the 100-year, 50-year, 25-year events? Is there a typical standard that most developers abide by?
Mayor Murphy, members of the council, the drainage plans are reviewed by Public Works. I'm hoping that someone from Public Works is available to answer that question.
I think that said somebody will be here soon.
Okay.
Out of just respect for the crowd, we have leadership in a different room right now,
to
so
free up some seats.
they'll come in, but if we can move on to the next question,
Yep.
we'll get the Public Works question.
Absolutely. Terry Dankert?
We have a 3D model. The purpose of the Plan A and B as presented was only a 2-dimensional, which to me does not really give you a real idea what's going on. The 3-dimensional, there is no way that the trees would be able to cover enough for a 39+ foot view. This shows a more realistic view of the buildings to each other, the dog parks, the recreation area on this 14.85 acres. The proposed development shows Plan A required recreation area of 4.6 acres. The recreational area, as per the plan there, has only 1.3 acres. This is only 27% of the required area and does not meet the existing requirements. Another issue I'd like to bring out is the elevation. The elevation on La Canada and the east boundary is 16 feet apart. The eastern boundary is 2906, the western boundary is 2922. That's 16 feet difference. So is the land going to be built up to compensate? If so, that would add more height to a 39-foot building. And then, like you say, they will be able to look down into the RV park, which to me is a safety issue because they will be able to monitor who is full-time, who is a part-time residence. Another concern, of course, is the drainage. According to the current regulations, 12 to 15% of the developed area should be retention ponds, which would be 1.5 acres. There is a lot of surface area that to make its way to the eastern boundary with a will these ponds hold the water to keep it from breaching the park's wall again? What safety measures, such as walls and fences, have been proposed for the retention areas, in the parking area and the living areas? The major concern would be for the children and pets. With the current elevation difference and the land coverage, the flooding issue will increase onto Green Valley RV Resort. In conclusion, we're not against development or progress. We just ask that this property be zoned as residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Shane, I see Nalos here. Did we want to touch on that or continue going and then I'll group the questions afterwards? What is your preference?
It's your pleasure, Mayor. Staff is here to respond if you want to go in that direction.
Okay. I'll continue and then we'll go back. George, is it Merple? Yeah. Okay. George Merple. No, Merple. Marple. Oh, Marple. Oh, okay. Looks like a U.
I confirmed that at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Well, I'm not going to contest with the Library of Congress.
I really appreciate that.
They're above your pay grade.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy and council members. My name is George Marple, and I've been an annual resident of the Green Valley RV Resort for over 20 years. I can remember coming down the Sarita Road at the intersection of Sarita Road and Nogales, and there were about 3 or 4 ramshackled buildings. That's what it was. But it's really grown up, and under your tutelage, it's done pretty well because I've been coming back here for over 20 years. But having said that, I have to say that the City Council must deny the petition to rezone this parcel, and there's 2 good reasons for it. First is the petition is using the wrong building zone code, B1, for the purpose of building a multifamily apartment complex. By obtaining a B1 zoning code, the petition would allow the owner or others to use the permitted building height of 39 feet to erect 3-story buildings. Whereas requesting the proper building zone code of R5, which limits the building height to 35 feet. So why are they petitioning for B1 rather than B5? That is so that they can build 3-story apartment buildings and circumvent
the correct height for the authors of your code. If they wanted 3-story apartment buildings, they would have put it in that code. Secondly, neither Part A or Part B meet the standards of performance under the B1 code. Specifically, the required, a required in table 18.422 of the B1 code, the Sarita Park and Recreation Design Manual, and the census data. Those three things, those three sources I used to calculate the proper open space required. For proposal A, it's 5.7 acres, and for proposal B, it's 5.1 acres. Their proposal is 1.3 for A and 1.5 for B. To use their own provisions, they would have to reduce their occupancy from 811 people in Proposal A down to 214 people. And in Proposal B, they'd have to reduce their residents from 740 down to 185. Furthermore, it's impossible.
You'll have to wrap up. The time is expired.
Impossible for them to meet one other critical area, and that is that they have to have 40% of the total floor space available in the project for non-residential use. And or they can use 65% of each building for non-residential use.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm going to butcher this one. Lyle Latfala? Thank you for pronouncing it correctly. Well, thank you. I got one right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just thought I would clarify to the audience, the reason why we have to follow the 3-minute, you can come on up.
Right.
The 3-minute rule is if we allow you to go over and then we ever limit somebody to 3 minutes, then we have a violation that we can get in serious trouble. And so when he says the 3 minutes and he says you can finish your sentence, we have to keep to that 3-minute to prevent us from future times having trouble. So we're not trying to be mean. It actually helps us out.
Right. Thank you. Please.
My name is Lyle Advala, and I've been a resident of Green Valley RV Resort for 5 years. I'd like to thank you all for attentively listening to us tonight. Everyone's still smiling and asking questions, so that's good. The definition of the word steward is one who takes care of others. The first known caretakers of this valley were the Hohokam Indians over 1,000 years ago, and many others have followed up to today's Tohono O'odham tribe. They were all good stewards of the land. You, as the 7 members of the town council, are now our stewards, our caretakers, and you're going to be making a very important decision for our children tonight. I'd like to share a quote about land stewardship from the famous Indian chief, Seattle. "The earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth. All things are connected. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children." I'd like to also quote some excerpts from your vision statement in your Aspire 2035 general plan. We envision that in the year 2035, the town of Sarita will be a place of distinctively high quality of life, achieved through its commitment to economic, social, and environmental responsibility. Sarita's appeal will be enhanced through its protection of natural resources, dark skies, natural habitat, and scenic views. Those are powerful words, meaningful words. I respectfully ask you tonight Do you really want to increase the population density of the community with potentially over 1,000 residents in these proposed apartments? We will have a density of over 70 people per acre compared with the current zoning of only 5. Do you want to increase urbanization with new buildings that definitely do not fit in with the character of the existing neighborhood? Think back to your discussion. Some people have made reference tonight about auxiliary dwelling units that you had a month ago. Do you want the rules and the views to change after you've established your residence? You want to think things consistent and simple? Think about the property values and loss of natural life and the dark skies that will no longer exist with the light coming from all those buildings. In conclusion, as you contemplate your decision tonight, I ask you as conscientious stewards of Sarita to think about your vision statement, the web of life and how everything is connected. And do we want to borrow our wonderful small town atmosphere from our children by putting these tall buildings blocking our view and changing the entire character of the town? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Raul Rodriguez? Raul? I think he might have left. Renee Williams? Time doesn't start till you get there, so you don't have to run.
Don't run.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. My name is Renee Williams. I've been coming to Sahuarita for over 20 years to visit my parents. 10 years ago, my husband and I purchased a home here, and we have been full-time residents for the last 4 years. My entire family has migrated here. My parents own 2 properties. My sister, my brother, and myself all own 1 property. When we purchased our properties, the property next door was to be developed as rural residential. My entire family, the citizens present tonight, and the 197 people that signed the petition all oppose this rezoning. Prior to becoming a full-time Sahuarita resident, I was on town council for 6 years in the town that I resided in. As such, I'm used to being on the other side of the dais. As an elected official, I face the same challenges that you're facing here tonight. Town build-out, and what to do to obtain an appropriate mix of single-family and multifamily residences. 200 workforce housing units is a wonderful goal, but flexing zoning standards, especially to the extent proposed here, is not appropriate. B1 is not the proper zoning for multifamily residences. R5 is. The developer cannot come even close to achieving the standards set in the B1 zoning. As George said, a minimum of 40% of the entire gross floor area is to be reserved for non-residential land use classification, or 65% of the ground floor of each building must be reserved for non-residential use requirements. The proposals do not meet these standards. Do you really think families want to live in a cement palace? B1 zoning requires 5.1 and 5.7 acres of open space on this land. These plans reserve only 1.3 and 1.5 acres. Children will be forced to play in the streets, and this is just one of the numerous safety hazards inherent in this plan. Is the town and developer prepared for the legal ramifications that will follow for inappropriate use of B1 zoning, failure to satisfy all B1 zoning requirements, and future litigation due to flexible zoning standards? Other safety concerns with this project include the flood plan, changing from 100 to 25 or maybe now 50 years. Drainage, a 16-foot elevation drop. Will you be there to restore our homes after they are flooded out? I did not encounter any of you assisting us after the last major storm, which decimated several of our homes. Drainage basins. How will you feel and what will be your liability when a child drowns? There are other concerns with this project: decreased property values, building heights, not appropriate for this location, and the negative impact on the Sahuarita Night Sky Code. This proposal is a major flexing of zoning standards. Once this can of worms is opened up, it will be difficult for the town to enforce any of its zoning standards.
Please
Are
wrap
you
up.
prepared for the impact on this community? Is this the legacy you want to leave? Thank you for your time and service to the community. Prior to voting, remember, your citizens elected you to do the right thing by protecting our interests, preserving our community, and enforcing the standards as specified in our town code.
Thank you. Susan Dorsey.
Thank you for letting me have my say. My name is Susan Dorsey, and I live off of Abrego, just south of Walmart. And I'm sorry to say, but I'm not impressed by your specialists that probably don't live in this town, that come and they say what they say, and oh, they approve everything, and it may work for a few years, but they're not here living every day what we have to live. And I'm talking about Duval Mine Road and Abrego, that nightmare over there, the by Mod Pizza, where they let people come out and one car blocks all 3 lanes, in the shopping center where they got plumbing sticking out, so when you go to leave the shopping center, you have to make a right, and that puts you in the opposite lane as somebody's coming into the shopping center. I'm talking about the shopping center over at Big Lots and Ross, when people get frustrated that it's so backed up that they decide they're going to make a left and they get in the left lane. Well, there's no left lane there. So the incoming traffic is hitting a line of cars sitting there wanting to make a left, and they all have to back up to get out of the way for the incoming traffic. And you go down to Continental, there's lots of times no parking spaces in that shopping center. And Walmart shopping center is getting packed. You know, what are you going to do about that? And what about our grocery stores where I say, do you have this item? Oh, well, we put our merchandise out as soon as we get it. We don't have any backup groceries in the back anymore. So where is the food? Where are you going to get the food to feed these people? And our beloved Christmas tree. That building is going to block the view of our beloved Christmas tree that we get to see for 2 months, that we look forward to every year, that we won't be able to see anymore. So are they not going to light it because a lot of people can't see it? You know, you need to think about the people that are living here and take care of the problems before you add more people. Quit building, quit giving out building permits. Our Duval Mine Road is going to be looking like Irvington and Valencia, a total nightmare for everybody that has to go on it. And lots of times I have to leave my house and get on Abrego and go all the way down to Esperanza and come up the freeway just to get over to La Canada to go visit my mom, which used to take 5 minutes, which now takes me about 15. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have no more speaker cards. Anybody else like to address the council during this public hearing? Yes? Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing, and then I'll start with a few questions, and then if the applicant wants to address any of the comments that have been, but I think I saw Nalo here somewhere. If he could address, one of the questions, Nalo, was, that I had was, you know, on a regular development agreement, you know, 25 years has been thrown out, 50 years, and 100-year on how you address drainage on typical development plans, and if there's a you know, a standard, a minimum, or whatever it may be addressing
Mr.
drainage.
Mayor?
Oh, yes, sir.
Before Nalo jumps in, for the benefit of, I mean, this is a recorded meeting, so a question was asked in the public, and you responded as a council member. It wasn't done at the podium, so I just want to restate the question.
Yep.
The question was, has the council read all of the emails that the public has sent in? And the response was affirmative.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure for the record that that was
Thank you.
recorded.
I appreciate that.
Cool. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, my name is Nalo Nalavale. I'm the engineering division manager. I'm with Public Works. I just want to make a note that usually when we look at drainage report, one thing that we got to keep in mind when we're reviewing those is that we got to make sure that we're eliminating any possibility of any flooding to any of the adjacent properties to the project. So typically when we review those, we're looking at the 100-year events for those. So a lot of times people, when they think about 100-year event, you're thinking, oh, it happens once every 100 years. That's not true. It's actually 1%. It's a event that has the chance of a 1% chance of happening any given year. It doesn't mean that it can happen one time, but it can happen one or twice a given year. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And again, that will be when the development plan would be coming in, correct? Thank you. That's an affirmative for the record from Arlanthea. I was hearing a lot of comments about it's not with, commensurate with the B1 zoning. Can you just touch on that, either one of you, from that perspective? Yeah, you can leave, but don't go far.
Sure, Mayor Murphy, members of the council, I can address the B1 zoning. Multifamily dwelling is a permissible use in the B1 zoning by right. There were some standards cited that come from our business zones, but they're actually applicable to the MX mixed use zone. They're not applicable to the B1 zone.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
can I just do a follow-up?
Yep.
So due to the fact that they're wanting to do commercial, they needed to be in that zone. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if they did the other zoning, it would only be residential, no commercial?
Let me double check that for you. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
The reference was B1 versus R5.
Right.
And whether it's commercial or combination option 1 or option B, it would both be B1, correct?
Correct. So the R5 zone allows for duplex and multiple dwellings. There's also a list of uses rather in the general residential regulations. Some of those are non-residential uses that are allowed in all residential zones. For example, I think church is listed in there, and a few other uses that are allowed in any residential zone, including the R5. The R5 allows the multifamily residence, as does the B1.
Right, thank you. And then I was hearing about some site coverage for Parker amenities. Can you touch on that really quickly as well?
Sure. When they submit their development plan, they'll be required to submit a recreation area plan that's in conformance with the Parks and Recreation Design Standards Manual. So that's when we'll be checking to make sure that they've met all of their required recreational standards. The manual does allow an in lieu fee for a certain portion of that requirement, so that's something that'll be analyzed when they come in with their
Right,
development.
as all developments are allowed to do, correct?
It depends on the size. The smaller ones have to provide all of their recreational amenities on site, but with over, I think the number is 65, over 65 units, they are allowed an in lieu fee for a certain portion of that.
Right, thank you. And then they touched on dark skies, and nobody is exempt, is it, during a development plan to do something other than what's required under the dark skies? I'm not sure what the term is, initiative or requirement, because of our circle. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have an outdoor lighting code, and they will be required to submit a lighting plan, ensuring that they meet the standards of that code.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to my right so far? Any questions to my left? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Diane. I turned my head too quickly. I apologize.
So this question is for Morgan Neville. So in your experience with Park Corporation, if this ordinance is approved, is it possible, feasible for a developer to come and put in a 100-year drainage plan? Is that acceptable in your world?
And why he's walking up here, or Morgan, you can answer that, but I think I heard, if you want to touch on that staff, it sounds like that's a requirement, correct? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Priolo, thank you for the question. I don't recall ever saying a 25-year plan, and I absolutely misspoken when I said 50.
Okay.
It's whatever the requirement is, it'll be met. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're up there, Morgan, sorry, since you have the microphone and we want to be on record, are there any, I tried to address some of the things that came to my mind, you know, the B1, the 100-year, lost my notes, the dark skies, which I know we have to comply with. Is there anything else that you would like to clarify or that you heard that?
No, I think Director Cassidy answered those questions adequately, and as I have mentioned in previous conversations with several of you, I'm hopeful for the opportunity of the inclusion of some commercial in the ultimate development, and ultimately that's why we chose the B1 in consultation with the staff to allow that flexibility, and also obviously that multifamily is an allowed use by right in that zoning category.
Right, and as that project as well as the below project you were talking about, because typically hard corners are the most valuable for those types of commercial uses, correct?
That's right. So if there's going to be any commercial, it'll be near to the hard corner. That's right.
Thank you. Any questions to my left? The public hearing is closed. So now it's up to further questions for staff or the applicant, or would entertain a motion. There was one suggested based out of the Planning and Zoning Commission that was presented. So if there were no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion potentially.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before someone puts forth a motion, I have concerns about a 3-story building, apartment complexes being placed there. There is no in the town that we did not incorporate. Like, we brought in La Posada, but they were already built when we brought them in. But this town has not approved a 3-story building, especially for housing. And it directly changes, in my opinion, where we are headed in the town of Sahuarita. I want us to keep us in, no, don't clap. They get annoyed when you clap. I would be swayed to do a 2-story, but a 3-story, I can see the concerns of the residents of having a 3-story building next to you with apartment dwellers in there. Not apartment dwellers, anybody, quite frankly, in 3-story building. So I would prefer us change it to keeping it at 2-story, 2 floors, not 3. And I wanted to put that forth. I'm not sure if that has any other agreement here on the council.
And my understanding is that with the buffer zone and 2-story to the closest property, that's what the recommendation was, just to make sure. And the other thing I heard was that they already can do 35 feet, so we'd be going to 39 feet, which would be 4 feet difference. So that's kind of where I was coming from. I think for me personally, the buffer, the 4 feet difference, and the two, and because the applicant, can answer this if you'd like, because I think at some point it has to pencil, correct? And part of our general plan has been to try to get more multifamily in the community, especially as the median prices keep elevating. So I would just throw that out as well.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I move to adopt ordinance 2023-164, approving rezoning case number SA 9-22-0002. The Park Corporation, La Cañada rezoning with the following conditions. 1, the site design shall be in substantial conformance with one of the preliminary development try that again. One of the preliminary development plans presented at the rezoning public hearings. 2, portions of the buildings within 80 feet of the eastern property line shall be limited to 2 stories. And 3, should additional traffic improvements to Duval Mine Road be required as a result of this development, the proportional share of those improvements shall be paid by the developer.
I'll second that. Are there any further discussions on it? I guess at this time, Ms. Cole, are you ready for, probably do a roll call vote? We haven't done one of those in a long time.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
No.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Morales. Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Priolo.
Before I vote, I want to share my process with you. All of you here that live in that RV, your voices matter. What you feel matters. It matters to me. As your councilwoman, when this issue first came to my attention, I read all your emails. I listened to the, 4 hours of testimony? I took notes about what your major issues were, and then I went to work to be boots on the ground myself. That's how I operate. I drove through your community. I did. I meandered up and down all those streets, and I saw the most amazing thing. In one of the driveways, there was a big circle of you all sitting around, chit-chatting, socializing, cutting up, laughing, having fun. And I experienced firsthand the sense of community captured in these pictures. I felt the sweetness of your community. When Dale Powers sent me the photographs of the drone pictures, it mattered to me that those pictures would be able to be shown here. When I heard the complaints or the concerns about the traffic and the La Cañada, I stood on the corner and I'm watching. I am watching because one of the emails, I don't know who it was, but one of the people that lived there said that they stood on the corner for an hour and watched the number of cars go by. So I joined you. I kind of went and I did kind of the same thing, all right? I heard the concerns about the traffic. So what did I do? I asked to meet with our traffic guru, Paul Burton. He's standing back there. And I had, I think, 3 department heads sitting around me with the traffic report. Ma'am, you're the expert in it. I think it's 30 pages long. And it was to help me make sense of this. I want to know, is this going to be a problem for these residents? I care. So I was duly impressed with Park Corporation and their willingness through what was worked out in that zoning commission for their willingness to contribute their fair share should, if this is approved, should traffic from that development create a problem that needs to be ameliorated, that the developer would contribute money to fix the problem for whatever proportion of the increased traffic came from those buildings going up if this was approved. I was satisfied with that. Then the water, that was a concern to me, all right? I heard you. I spent 2 hours with the president of Community Water with that will call letter, because in part of the testimony I heard, someone was challenging that letter and said, there's not going to be enough water. Well, I wanted to make sure there was. So a 2-hour meeting with the president of Community Water, and after I got educated about the water and our aquifer and what Community Water does, I walked away from that meeting feeling very comfortable that there is indeed enough water to sustain those proposed apartments. Then there was the term, and people have thrown out the term affordable housing. I'm a social worker. Affordable housing is used, is a term that's used for people that are really financially challenged and that the rent can be no more than 30% of their income. It unfortunately has been used in this project, and I think the two connotations have been mixed up. They shouldn't. Affordable housing, when it's Section 8 and HUD housing, that's the kind of housing that brings to image the crime and the vandalism and all those issues around safety. I have great confidence in our police department to continue to keep our town safe, and we have a very safe town. Thank you, Sahuarita Police Department. And when I met with Mr. Neville, is it Morgan Neville or Neville Morgan?
Morgan Neville.
Morgan. So I met with him, and I needled him with my many questions, and I needled him hard, because I care about your sunsets, I care about your view, but I also know Sahuarita desperately needs affordable workforce housing. So what does that mean? It means the young professional, the teacher, the nurse, the police officer, the fireman, the border patrol agent, all of those people that want to work where they want to live where they work, and they can't afford to buy a house. They can't, the rents to rent a house are astronomical, and they have to go outside of Sahuarita in order to find housing because we do not have enough workforce housing. We don't. It's a real need. So when I met with Morgan Neville and we looked at the plans and I heard about the concessions that this company was willing to make when they proposed this to the developers, that they would actually pitch to build this project, we looked at the views. We looked where there would be a corridor, so maybe there would be an open space to see the sunset. I know sunsets feed your soul, don't they? We're human beings, we're spiritual beings. These things feed your soul. But, and there's two sections where there would be a clear view. I really appreciated the willingness to make the easement 80 feet so that there would be that more respect for that sense of it's not breathing right down my neck, to create the space and to have one of the buildings have only 2 stories. In meeting with him, I said, that's going to look ridiculous, and the building's all kittywampus. And correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, sir, was that the building could be put straight so that you wouldn't have anything kind of kittywampus and encroaching on that 80-foot easement. Then I needled him about the drainage plan because I heard about the flood. I care
Can
about
we get a
your
vote?
property floods. What?
That was Bill, if he was asking to.
Yes, well, you'll get my vote when I'm done speaking because I care. Yes, it will be tonight, Bill. I care. And I took my time and I did my due diligence. But when you sit here, you have to look at the long view. I am voting to support this plan, but I am asking that it be Plan B. The plan with the commercial corner, with the 80-foot easement, and with no building that is within that 80-foot section. So I'm supporting Plan B because this town needs workforce housing.
But for Mr. Palladini, can you clarify, because there's a motion made by,
It's, the way I read it, it's a yes vote.
okay, thank you. Please continue, Lisa.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Gillespie.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you, appreciate it. Item number 13, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible approval of the procurement and installation of audio-visual equipment from Arizona Sound and Light LLC in an amount not to exceed $175,000 for the town council chambers and the municipal courtrooms 1 and 2.
Thank you. Ron, come up here and maybe we'll just take 1 minute. These are tough things. Yeah. Well, that's why we're working on a sort of code of conduct, we're working on a code of conduct manual for council and things, so we're gonna have a study session on that, so, but I thought it was a good explanation. Yeah, I would've just said ditto, I was thinking ditto.
Good
Ron,
evening,
Good evening,
Mayor.
return visit, thank you.
Yes, I came up here just to do a little change of pace.
Right.
Thank you for your time once again. Before you are proposed upgrades to the town's audio-visual system, specifically in town council chambers and our municipal courtrooms. I'm going to be brief as it's a long night, and so we'll begin with town council chambers. These upgrades are geared towards presentations. Parentheses indicate the expected benefit of the upgrade. So town council chambers is a multi-use space. We use it for many different functions. We can do health fairs in here, job fairs. Many different agencies utilize this space. It's a very unique space. So we like to take those multiple use scenarios into account when we do the build out. We also consult with other departments to see how they would like to use the space. The project will span multiple fiscal years due to the current difficulty in acquiring audiovisual equipment, as did the original project for our video wall. That also spanned multiple fiscal years. This project does not include a trap door. Sorry about that. It's an interesting proposal.
Darn.
Not technically audiovisual related, but it is an interesting proposal. So in general, we plan on increasing system performance. We're going to increase the viewable area of the screen, and we're also adding a better system for presenters. And that's indicated right here in the lower right corner. We're going to put a little presentation on the podium. So we've noticed, we originally put that, there's a video screen above you that you can't see.
Right.
And we meant that for presenters. But throughout the years, we've noticed that most people do this. And when they do that, they face away from the microphone. So, yeah. So we're going to put a screen up here so that they can do this, which is easier. Okay.
Can I interrupt you there, Ron? Because before I
Sure.
forget, one of the things I've noticed over the years with that screen is if somebody wants to use a pointer, it disappears. So you can't use it. So are we looking at something, either a newfangled pointer that would work on a screen such as this, or a screen that would
That's a
take
very
pointer?
good question, Mr. Mayor. So the reason pointers don't work, and here's a pointer, and we'll just shoot it up there in the wall. Oh, I'm messing with stuff. Well,
That was advancing. Oh, we're done. I'll
I
entertain a motion at this
I
time.
totally messed up presentation. Well, I'll get back to where I was. Well, as you can tell, the pointer actually worked there.
Right.
But it doesn't work on the screen. Why is that? Well, the reason is the video wall actually emits lights. So versus like a projector, which we used to have.
Right.
That actually reflects light. So because of the light emission, we can't see a pointer. Now, one thing we do have, and I don't have it with me, but I can grab it if you want.
No, it's okay.
Okay, you can trust me.
Yes, always.
We have a pointer that we can bring up here. And it actually, it's not technically a laser pointer, but it's a cursor. It's a portable cursor.
Oh.
And you can move it around. It's kind of like a gun.
Right,
So-
like that, going now.
Yes, thank you.
So would that be available to the presenter? So if they're trying to, you know, when Chris was lining the yellow lines and the purple lines for global, you know, we'd actually be able to see the,
It would, and we can actually increase the cursor size so that it even becomes more visible.
okay.
Yeah, and we'd like to do that. We also have a portable keyboard. We just don't get a lot of call for it. So it's really simple to use. You just press the trigger and you can move the cursor around like so. On our new presentation monitor, you would see that also. It would be available, so you'd see what you're removing, you know, as you move the cursor around. So, great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I only ask great questions,
I
if you haven't noticed, so.
Yeah, I noticed that. So, courtroom 2. Municipal courtroom, both courtrooms 1 and 2. So the municipal courtrooms are a bit more complex. Parentheses on the presentation indicate which courtroom is affected. CT1 is courtroom 1, and CT2 is courtroom 2. Courtroom 1 is above, and courtroom 2 is below. This is more of an overhaul than the council chambers upgrade. In general, we're expanding functionality of both courtrooms for video court and Teams meetings. We're improving audio capacity, and we're also upgrading their video systems. Scheduling is dependent on the court. Multiple vendors were approached for both of these projects. The selected vendor was the most cost-effective. They also installed our original system, the one we're currently using, both here and in the courts, and as well as the upgrades. And they were also the only vendor who could integrate our video camera systems with our current audio systems. So that's why we selected that vendor. Go back real quick, I missed something while I was messing around with the pointer. The project timeline for council chambers is this summer. The reason being is we're going to be running new wiring. We have to, you know, get under the dais. We're going to be removing this and this video wall and putting a new video wall up. So quite a bit of work done. Scheduling, we'll have to work with our town magistrate to do courtrooms 1 and 2. So with that, I'll answer any.
And when we upgrade, we're not going to have screens or squares dropping off, I hope,
We
in the
hope
future?
not.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the reason that happens is, you know, this system, it's just showing its age. It was a great system years ago. We were one of the first municipalities to have a video wall, and it was really cool. You know, we got lots of requests from other towns. You know, how'd you do that? What'd you do? But it was built, you know, video and pictures in that 6-7 years ago were smaller.
Right.
So the system really has a tough time with detailed pictures and large,
And videos.
and
in some
videos.
place, right.
Yeah, it's showing its age.
Okay.
Like me.
We're all showing our
Like
age.
me.
That's not, I get that,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Were you finished up, Ron? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Ron, was this in the budget or is this an add-on?
So we did budget for this. However, it's taken a while to put together, just for the fact we, you know, asked so many vendors, and we were going to try and do some video work, perhaps. As you're all aware, we're moving to a Teams environment. You know, management is currently discussing incorporating Teams kind of, you know, all the time for all meetings. And Teams is more or less, we're kind of jury rigged for Teams right now. We've hammered it in, for lack of a better, better way to say it, and it's kind of complicated. So that's what took the process so long to.
But it is
review.
within the budget.
It is in the
Yes.
budget, yes.
Okay.
It is currently budgeted.
All right. I'll entertain a motion if there's no more questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to approve the procurement and installation of audiovisual equipment from Arizona Sound and Light in the amount not to exceed $175,000 for the town council chambers and municipal courtrooms 1 and 2.
Second.
I second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Looks like, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I may be able to do
I like
that
the
just on my
lightning
own.
effect.
on there. Madam Clerk, item number 14.
Presentation and update on the Town of Sahuarita strategic plan.
And Victor Gonzalez, our Economic Development Manager, as he's walking up, watching this clock. But it's a very interesting and important discussion to have, so please continue.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for your patience on this agenda item. Nothing like talking strategic planning at 9:30 p.m.
Absolutely.
I promise you this will be no more than a few slides. It is an important piece of business for the town and the organization as we look to chart where we're going forward. And so we want to take time and provide you just a check-in update to the process of finalizing the strategic plan that you all and as a leadership team reviewed earlier this year. Just to give you some background, as a reminder to all of us, we had our Town Council Leadership Retreat on January 5th and the 6th at Quail Creek, in which we discussed many things as an organization, not only budget, finance, projections, but we spent a lot of time about the strategic plan and where we're going as an organization, and most importantly, our focus areas. As a reminder, the 5 focus areas for us are economic expansion and placemaking, outreach and communication, infrastructure and facilities, community well-being, and highly performing organization. And these 5 areas in our strategic plan provides us, if you will, the direction. It also helps it guides the resources and how we allocate those resources. And then it establishes what I think we all can agree is the standards of excellence as to the organization. And by way of background, this strategic plan was first established in 2016 and was revised in 2020. So just to take a minute here, and I do want to solicit some feedback from you, if you will. If you recall, we spent some time during the strategic plan retreat talking about big picture, and some of that included establishing what is a mission statement, right? What is our North Star as an organization for the strategic plan? And so this is a mission statement that was drafted by way of input by everyone in that room that afternoon. And so I'll read it to you. The town of Sahuarita is dedicated to being a vibrant, innovative, and diverse community with exceptional municipal and fiscal leadership, public safety, amenities, and economic prosperity that creates an outstanding quality of life for all. That is the draft mission statement that will be inserted in our strategic plan moving forward. So I want to pause there, get any thoughts, comments, reflections to that statement.
As I remember it, I know there was a mishmash, of certain things, but that's how I thought I remembered that we were working towards on there. That's just my memory. Anybody else have any comments? Everybody okay with it? Shane, is it okay if, when they're a little more clear-eyed, if they take it home with them and think about it? Is there time, or do you want something concrete tonight? I know we would like to move some of these things forward, but
I think it'd be difficult if there are substantive changes individually.
Right, 'cause then we'd
and
have
not
to
have
come
to bring
back
it
and-
back again
yeah.
to you guys. We think that this language pretty much reflects the input that we got from all of you
Right.
when we were bushy-eyed.
Right.
But if we don't get some direction from you here, I think we'll probably have to just bring it back at a different time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I only have one as I was looking at that, and I feel like to have a mission statement is something we have to be able to accomplish. We have to be able to do it. And I'm just curious as how we decide that how do we make our community diverse? And so that's the only word that stuck out to me that I was like, I'm not sure how a town can make themselves diverse. I don't know if that's in our responsibility. I don't know if that's
Or do we even control it?
Mayor?
that's kind of what I was like. Well, it's a mission statement. It means that we are set to do that. And I'm not again, I'm just bringing that up. I'm looking at all those, I'm like, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. I'm just not sure that we are in charge of making sure our community is diverse.
I will just offer, as an example, council took action tonight on a rezone application that, in my opinion, brings diversity to our community. It brings a diversity in housing stock and inventory, and consequently will bring diversity by way of population.
And that's kind of, Shane, how I was thinking of it. It's not necessarily diversity of ethnicity or population, because I don't think we control that, but a diverse community is not being tied to just residential growth. You know, there's commercial growth, there's other kinds of growth, housing stock.
Think about it as a balance in community, and how we, you know, really a strong community is a balanced community between recreational amenities, business, job opportunities, housing, parks and recreation. That's all kind of a diverse perspective. So
Would you like balanced? What do you think?
I would just like maybe a different word that doesn't have a different meaning in our society, because I think that has a different meaning in our society today that we're not in charge of. That's all.
I agree with you.
And I don't know, would balanced community work? I don't know if that's a.
I think they can wordsmith it if they want. It's just my view on it.
Victor, do you have any other synonyms that you can come up with? At 9:30.
At 9:30. Mayor and council, if there's not a majority that feel like we need to change this, I
Right.
don't know if we should go through that exercise. But
Right.
if the majority of you feel like we need to change diverse to some other word, we're happy to take a stab at
Right.
that.
Well, I heard two so far. You're okay with it? Simon's okay. Bill? Dr. Gillespie?
We could say a diversified community instead of a diverse community.
That's better. Yeah, that's better.
It's a different connotation.
Diversified community. Let me think about that one.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I may just interject, this mission statement won't necessarily live out there by itself. It will be part of the strategic plan, which then will lead the reader into the 5 focus areas and what those focus areas mean for the community and the definition of those focus areas. So as the reader looks through the plan, they'll get a sense of
What the definition of diverse would actually apply to. Okay. Now I'm good with it. Yes.
I'm wrestling with the last sentence, given the testimony that we heard tonight from the Quail Creek and Sahuarita residents.
Actually, the whole thing is one sentence.
Well, yeah, it is, but that, and creates an outstanding quality of life for all. I think that would stick in the craw of many people.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Members of the council, I think that wrestle, that conflict is a healthy conflict that you are feeling and sensing. I think the mission statement makes it possible to have that wrestle, because you've got various property owners that all want to exercise their own individual rights. And so I wouldn't shy away from that. I would embrace it, because it's just part of a community that's growing through its adolescence phase and realizing its potential, and that magic happens in this room, as we've talked
Often
about
talk
that,
about,
often
yes.
talked about. So
Well, I'm more comfortable now based on what you said, Shane, and then also Victor's comment about the, all of the goals and the meat of it, you know, the roots of it will actually address that. And there won't be, I'm assuming, anything in there that somehow we have control, whether we're 40% Hispanic community or, you know, 60 or whatever it might be, or African American or whatever it might be. So,
Mr. Mayor, I guess just in the interest of time, can we do a vote on this?
yeah, I was just going to make a motion.
Make a motion to adopt the mission statement as stated.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. 6-1. There was, so Lisa, did you get that? It was 6-1.
This item itself, the
Oh, we don't have it as a-
language, but we did hear the direction.
Okay. So, John, since we made a motion, but we didn't have, don't we have a coverall that everything can be potentially? No, we don't, okay.
So, nobody made a motion and nobody voted, but we heard direction from
That
the
sounds-
vast majority.
That sounds really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard. Yep.
I do want to point out that we're continuing as staff to review the focus areas and the associated goals. So next step for staff will be to bring back to council what is the revision of the strategic plan in draft format for you to review. So currently staff is reviewing the 22 or so goals that we currently have. As a council and department directors, we were part of that process in January, reviewing those goals. And so we're now going through the 70-plus comments that were part of the retreat process and the sticky notes and the color-coded notepads. And so we're filtering through all that information that we received from council and the feedback on those goals. We're also taking a closer look at the goals and the language and the suggested comments by council and staff and how that language and those goals could be crafted so that they're smart, right, specific, measurable, and achievable, realistic. And so we'll bring all that back in a package format for you to review at a future town council meeting and for council to take action and adopt that strategic plan. So that's where we're at in next steps, and we'll be, so stay tuned.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Any further discussion or questions for Shane or Victor? Having no more further business, we're adjourned. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thanks for everybody hanging in there. And we'll fix that light. Which one is it? Oh.